Weston board meeting to order for Monday, February 17th, 2025 at 6 p.m. You all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Maloney,
He is absent and excused.
Cronin,
Here.
Ermeling is excused. Jordan,
Here.
Pincinel,
Present.
Wyland, here. Sagami,
Here.
All right, public comments. It looks like I've got two of them. I'm gonna first call Tanya Searles. I apologize if I mispronounced that.
Actually, most people don't, so good one.
So if you wanna sit there, you can. If you wanna step up, you can. Just please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Tanya Strolls. My address is 1830 Monterey Avenue in Weston.
The floor is yours.
Okay, I came here to speak today about agenda item number 43. I had several conversations with the office, most of those conversations with Greg Schmidt, the assessor, in regards to the reassessment that was done last year. The first contact I had with him was early in the process. And I had, several questions about the process, and there was like examples that were sent out, and I had concerns about values and things. And so, long story short, I had shared an appraisal with him that our last appraisal that we had done on our home, which was 2017, I believe, and I shared that value with him, and I had provided the entire thing to him so that he can see like the specs in our house and stuff. So it was found that the square footage of our house was incorrect during the reassessment. So we went back and forth again about value, and he had given me a new value. So it was currently 284,000. With the correct square footage, with the square footage corrected, he dropped it down to 268.5, which is a difference in of 15,500. The assessed value decreasing. So then I asked him if it was possible to get a refund of the tax overpayment that I made based on the wrong square footage that was used in the reassessment. And him and Pam kind of guided me through process and what I had to do. So I submitted the letter that I was requested, just laying out the facts, and Greg had helped me with the figures that you'll see in that letter. I also had a concern about, I had taken a survey by looking up on the Marathon County property records of homes within our immediate neighborhood, our block, like within a block or two of us. And I found that the values went up anywhere between, on average, anywhere between $100 and $400. Ours went up almost $1,650. So our assessed value raised 228%, which I felt was kind of inflated, so by much. How can it go up 228% when none of the other homes in our neighborhood went up that much? The only other property that went up that much in our neighborhood is another duplex that's identical to us that we share a backyard with. The only difference between that one and ours is it's a little smaller in square footage, but those are the only two properties in our neighborhood whose assessed value went up 200 and some percent, and whose taxes went up $1,650 when everybody else's only went up like like I said, between 100 and 400. So that just tells me, it's kind of raises some red flags with me. I'm not, don't have complete understanding of how this process goes. It would be nice to know more detail on that, because it just seems, I don't know, it just seems like something's amiss there. So anyway, my request is to at least get the difference in property taxes refunded to us because of the error in square footage in our home.
All right, thank you very much. Well, I think you're item number 43, but I guess if the rest of the board is okay with it, we'll try to get you moved up in just a couple minutes here, okay? All right, thank you. All right, public comment number 2, we have Representative Pat Snyder that wishes to make a comment.
Good evening, everyone. Pat Snyder, 6001 Alderson Street, apartment 18. And I'm here more as information than anything else. Tomorrow night, the governor will come out and introduce his budget for the next 2 years that would begin in July 1st. We have a little bit over $4 billion in surplus money that is out there. My side of the aisle, the Republican side, wants to somehow get tax back to the people, because it was because of an overcharge why we have such a high surplus. We're looking to try to make some adjustments with the tax, but he's vetoed these before. But why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of the money that we have in surplus is one-time spending. It's not something that would be to grow government, that would be a revolving, that would need it every session. So with that in mind, I'm going to the folks I represent, Wausau, Village of Weston, and then the towns, and just say that if you have economic development that could use some money, to reach out to my office. And also I could work on helping you with your park renovation. There could be some grant money there, or also some other money that I could help with on that. We did it last session with the out at NTC, the Regional Forensic Science Center. We were able to get $5 million to that with that. So look into that, see if you're interested, and let me know, and I can go to work for you. I can look to see if we can get some of the money and maybe get a one-time payment to help you guys. I think it's a $15 million project. You put in 7 million so far?
No,
700,000.
700,000.
766.
766. So what would the budget be for the village? What would you go halvesies if I could get 7, or is the baseball league supposedly fundraising?
We're doing fundraising. So that's why we committed the first dollar, the 766
Okay.
in that, and that accomplishes our first field. But we could have a conversation about what potential support would
Okay,
be.
should I come and talk with you, Jamie?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll set up a time to come talk to you and see if we can help you out somehow.
Yeah.
Yes,
Is it only for one park or could be several park?
I guess I was thinking the renovation for Kennedy Park, but if you, I can't guarantee things, but I can ask. That's what I do. I talk to my joint finance committee and put in requests. So, yeah, Jim,
Any public safety projects that could be used for, like?
I think so, yes.
Department or?
Like I said, look, I can't guarantee, but I'll ask everyone and say, is there either grants or can we establish money for
Thank
it?
you.
But I just wanted to come and tell you this so you can reach out to me, because he'll give the budget tomorrow, and then probably the joint fiscal bureau will get it, score it. And by the middle of March or so, the joint finance committee will start working on things. And I did apply to have Wausau to be an area where the joint finance committee comes and holds one of their public hearings. So, but go ahead, Jamie.
If I could kindly attend that meeting as well. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. That'd be great.
I'm Chair for Parks.
Mondays and Fridays, I'm here in town, so we'll schedule something.
They didn't already schedule joint finance, did they? They don't know that would be held here in Wausau.
No, not yet. They
Okay.
just reached out for people to volunteer their community, and I volunteer our community. I said that we have NTC, we have Wausau East, and I even said Green Heck Turner. You know, possibilities to hold it, so we'll see.
Awesome.
Any other questions? I usually I don't, but you don't have me here.
How much time we have?
The budget will hopefully be signed by July 1, but I think we have through April,
Okay.
so to be able to get the budget requests in, the budget motions, a lot of those, I'll have budget motions in, so that's how we got the Regional Forensic Center, is through a budget motion. And I'll get Tom Checkerboard and a few others to join in as well, and then pray that the joint finance, sees it. Asked for so much, but he, like I had one request, one for home visiting with nurses, I asked for 10 mil, I got 1 mil. So it just depends on the JFC a little bit, so,
Awesome.
all right.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Thank
set
you.
up a meeting with Jamie when you have time. She's
I
got.
will, I'll have
a handle
my
on
Scott
this.
reach out to you, Jamie, bring Jamie in.
Thank you. All right, any more public comments? Anybody else in the audience that wishes to make a comment or online? Do you have anybody with their hands up? Mike, Jamie, you running the meeting? Nobody?
Oh, there isn't anyone that went off mute, so it should be good.
Perfect. Would the board like to take up 43 right away, or do we want to get through minutes and reports first?
So I move to suspend the rules and move item 43 forward.
Second.
So we have a motion by Pincinel, second by Zagami on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, so carried. So we'll move to item number 43. Let me get to my place here. So discussion and or action on request for refund of overpayments and property taxes, 1830 Monterey Avenue, 6214 Alta Verde Street.
I move to refund the money.
So we have a motion by Zagami. We have a second. We have a second by Wyland on the question. Go ahead.
Is this one parcel or two? I see two different addresses, just
It's one
one.
parcel, it's a duplex. We live in one side and we rent the other side out.
Got it. And their address is two different streets?
Yes,
Got
this is a mirrored duplex. It's kind of unique. But there are, yes, two different street addresses because of what type of duplex it is.
Where did the data come from that the assessor based his assessment off of? So was that based on a building permit from when this structure was built? Was this based on a database? Where did we get that number?
There is a surveying at Marathon County land and title section. You can go in there, the surveying map of all the property are there. The square footage in there, fair market value is there, the assessed value, everything you want to know about the specific property, you can Google it and get it.
I
You go
understand
to
that,
the
Hushain,
website
but the
and-
number is wrong, correct? The number that's in that database is wrong.
It was
So
wrong.
if that
It
number is wrong,
corrected now. But I,
so has it been wrong from the date this property was built?
no. Greg sent us an email on where that information came from. Did it come from the database and I
I'm gonna
apologize.
look it up quick.
Okay.
Email.
I think that this is the main thing to really note on here. If you looked at Greg's email, he specifically said there was a transposition error, or there was some type of error on his part. This statute does not allow a refund if there was just, reading the lesson, the alleged error is solely the assessor's place evaluation on the property that is excessive. I think we need to be clear on that because we can't have every resident coming in saying that there's an error on my tax bill and I need a refund, because the statutes do not allow for that. There's only certain issues that it allows for. One of the reasons why there's no talk about a refund because of an error in the statutes is because every time there's a change of an assessment, you get a letter and there's open book. What is expected is that when you get the letter, there's open book, you need to come before the taxes are set. That's why in the state statute, it doesn't give room for an error. It specifically disallows the reason an error is solely the assessor's placed a valuation on the property that is excessive. So if the board is thinking that this qualifies for A through F, then we need to give a refund. If the board believes that number 2 is the answer, there's no refund. I guess I presented it for the board to make the decision on this refund.
Yeah, can you just read what Greg had said on the finding of the error?
He said Tanya had an appraisal done on her duplex by Scott Williams Appraisal that showed a lesser amount of main level square footage than what appeared in the village's files. After investigation, it showed that there was a number transposition in my file. However, at the same time, I was able to gain some basement finished square footage that had been done at some point without a building permit. The net effect on the assessed value was $15,500, which was the basis for the refunded tax amount.
So it was a transition of the number.
So what I'm hearing is that Greg is in agreement that the number that was on the county's records is wrong, correct?
That it's corrected now, but there was a transition
But it
in
was,
entry.
okay.
Yes.
More or less, he's looking at letter F.
Okay,
So that would be, we would be able to charge back the other taxing jurisdictions. If it was not A through F, we'd have to solely return these funds from the village. But right now, we are able to charge back the other taxing jurisdictions and share that $248.
sorry, Jim, I didn't mean to interject. If you got more, go ahead.
I do here. Has the assessor physically been on site at the parcel or parcels to complete an in-person inspection and measurement to ensure that they're accurately represented and no other mistakes have been made?
See, and that's what my question was too. If this was a mistake, how many other mistakes are there? And he's never been on the property, physically on the property ever, that I know of. We've lived there for 23 years, and I don't recall ever having a personal visit from him to do any kind of measurements or any other type of observations at all.
Did you build the property?
What's that?
Did you build the property?
No.
So it's possible the assessor visited it when it was constructed and did the measurements?
Correct, but then where did the finished basement space that Greg comes up with in this email, where did that come from? How does
Probably-
he know there's finished basement space if he's never been at the site?
From the assessment record, from the appraisal record that he received from the owner.
And the home was built in the late 80s. So it's not a new.
And you're not questioning the amount of finished space in the basement?
Like I said, I wish I had more knowledge in this area, but I would, trust the appraisal and what their findings are.
But when Greg reviewed the finished square footage, you're not questioning that that amount of square footage is finished in the basement, I guess is my question.
Is the appraisal likely said that there were more square feet finished in your basement than the village had on file? Make sense? So sometime between 1986 or whenever the home was built until your appraiser was there, something happened somewhere and we finished a room in the basement or something.
Yeah, it's a small section that's finished.
Sure, so
yeah.
those numbers got added then in your appraiser, right? But our assessor didn't know that, because like you said, he's never been in your house.
Right, that I'm aware of, right? Yes.
Didn't Greg say in his email that he was aware of that and that
Well,
this adjusted amount was still factoring in the square footage in the basement? Is that
Yes,
correct?
because the number was transposed, so that came off the square footage. The addition for the basement that was provided through the appraisal got added on. So this is the difference between the two.
Okay.
I would like to see the assessor physically go there, so there's no question. I would like to see the motion change to direct the assessor to go there, then there's no question.
I would appreciate that. I would love that. And I would, because I really strongly feel that some things, I just would feel a lot better and more, I don't know, at ease about this whole thing. It's like I said, it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of red flags to us because I don't know, I would really like that, that would help us out a lot, just to have him physically see.
Would Greg be open to that? Or
Yeah,
could we, I mean, could we make it our motion? I mean, the motion on the floor
It is,
is to refund. Could we make
I'll
our
just put it on the
refund?
floor to discuss it. So,
Yeah, no, I understand, but could we not make the motion to refund contingent on the assessor just verifying that
yes, we can do that.
this is all correct?
Yeah,
It's
so
just amend the motion.
Okay,
the amendment that I prepared, if you would be willing to accept it here, is if I move to direct the village assessor to do an on-site assessment and measurement of the 6240 and 1830 parcels. If the assessment and measurement yields an error, then the difference in value shall be promptly recorded and the taxpayer shall be refunded the difference in property tax money to be paid as soon as possible.
He's not gonna measure it.
Well, then how in the hell is he getting all big it is?
Well, then you gotta get the surveyor over there to surveying it.
The surveyor isn't gonna go in with the wand and measure your bedroom,
No, he can't do that.
but you
You
can,
can't-
Greg can go
you
in with a
can't-
ruler and measure. She's
You
not.
can't pull the tape and measure it. It doesn't work.
all right, so hold on a second here. We have a motion on the floor, so let's see if we get a second on this.
No. Okay,
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a second on the amended motion, so we have to vote on that first. So any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
no,
No. Joe? No, okay. So it fails 3-2. So we're back to the original motion, which is, what, please, if you want to repeat, can you repeat your original motion, or Pam, do you have that?
This, Hushang's motion.
he
Oh, I
can go out
apologize.
there and take a look at the property and make his judgment and report it to us. Don't ask him to do the measurement. He can't do it. He can't pull the tape. It doesn't work that way. If you want to make a motion for him to go out there, that's great, do it. But don't ask him to do the measurement.
I guess Hushang, I'm struggling to understand why he wouldn't measure if he's gonna
He
go out there.
can't do it by himself, he gotta pull the tape. With the tape, when you pull the tape, it's still, there is an error in there.
You know, we have lasers, right?
He has a laser,
Home Depot has one for $11, man. I'll buy it if he doesn't have one.
ask
He
him.
have one.
I guess I'm not
Welcome to have one of yours.
What does pull the tape mean? What are you referring to? What?
You gotta measure the line to figure out, to come up with the square footage.
Right.
If this finished
can't
square
just
footage of
look at
the
it and
home,
say
not the
square
square footage
footage
of
is
the parcel that is being disputed.
If there is a surveying map, we can measure it on the surveying map and say that's what it is, because there is a stamp on it, that surveyor certified that, that's a good measurement.
To your point though, so we already have a square footage that was recorded at the only thing that he would have to verify would be whatever occurred in the basement. I mean, the upstairs is the upstairs.
Then he can do that, he doesn't need a measurement. He can go take a look at it.
I would, well, I guess what I'm saying is I understand your point, but at the same time, I mean, how many other properties has Greg gone through and you look at a combination of the building permits and whatever the county has recorded and whatever Zillow is showing and all those different things to come up with these numbers. I mean, I would have to think that as long as he puts his eyes on it in some way or another, we have to be able to trust his judgment on whether or not he thinks it's correct. And I mean, to some extent, it already sounds like he's reviewed it and he would agree that it's correct. I'm not discounting that he should probably come out and see the property, but
Did you ask Greg to
Just
come
my 2
out and see it
cents.
through these conversations?
I don't think we specifically talked about that, but it was something that I was thinking, I just didn't wanna overstep my requests. I was just. I didn't know like what really rights we had or how far we could push it. I mean, because we do really wanna push this thing, because there are a lot of, I don't know, after my husband and I had many, many different conversations about this, and I just, something's wrong, and I just would feel better. I mean, the appraisers do measure,
Correct.
they have to measure. So,
I think Greg would be very receptive if you reached out to him and just asked if he would come out to the property. And because I mean, I don't think that in any of your conversations with him up to this point that you haven't found him to be receptive. Would you disagree with that? I mean, I think he's been
he's very
responsive.
pleasant to work with,
Yes.
yes.
So I think if you asked him to come out, I think that he would and measure. And I also think that, not for this year, because outside of this refund, but the tax bills have already been generated, but, Pam could forward to you the property owner's book that talks about the process for assessments and how one goes through open book. When you get that information that comes out annually. So there is from the DOR, or DOA, there is a pamphlet that talks about that, and we could forward that to you too. Just so next year the process would be more familiar.
Thank you, Jamie. So is there any, would we like to amend the motion to have him visit that property?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Does anyone want to make that motion?
Let's withdraw that motion, or you wanna make one?
Well, the motion on the
You
floor,
gotta amend the motion.
yeah, the motion on the floor is to refund the money.
Correct. Then somebody else gotta amend the motion.
Correct.
Go ahead, Jim.
I think you
I
can.
did, and it was voted down, so
No,
I'm not
well-
doing it again.
Don't ask him to do the measurement.
I don't know what you want. She wants, and I want
She wants
the
him
man
to
to
go
come
visit the
down
site.
and look at it. So,
Look at it. I agree to look at it. Make your amendment say to look at, review with the homeowner, and we'll be good with this. Very well.
I move to direct the village assessor to an on-site assessment of the 6214 Monterey and 1830 Monterey Ave parcel. Is that acceptable?
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So on the amended motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? So carried. Now on the original motion to issue the refund, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. Go. Thank you very much for coming, and I'm sure, do we want to have Greg reach out to her, or?
We'll send Greg a message, yep.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time too and coming down tonight. We appreciate it as well. All right, sir, can I ask, are you here for a specific agenda item?
Yes.
For Crane Meadows, he's
Green Meadows.
Number 42.
So would the board like to move item number 42 up to the front of the line here as well?
Let's move and move item 42 forward, the next agenda item.
There's a motion by Mr. Pincinel,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Jordan. On the question, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. So we'll move to item number 42.
Before discussion was started, I did send on Friday additional correspondence, email correspondence, between Crane Meadows property owner and Michael. I just want to make sure everybody saw that because that just adds some additional pieces to the conversation this evening.
Okay. So item number 42, discussion and or action on claim of Crane Meadows Golf Course. Date of loss 7/8/2024, claim number WM 0003719200085. It's your pleasure. You want to take a stab at a motion, get it on the floor?
Again, what's on the agenda tonight is we submitted this to insurance. And insurance did come back and disallowed the claim. So what this piece would be is asking the board to accept what the insurance company stated, which was a disallowal of the claim. The follow-up to that would be the email correspondence that I mentioned and the desire to want to work with Dan on the property to see if there are alternative solutions, and I think Michael can better speak to those than I can, but if the claim was disallowed by insurance.
No, so Jamie, I didn't see in all the stuff that I looked at what the claim was for, the value. I mean, what is he actually, what was the claim? What was the actual claim for?
The claim was for lost revenue due to the flooding on the golf course, and it was, I think, $23,000 or $24,000 that it was submitted for.
So I guess if no one's ready to make a motion, which is fine. Michael, do you have anything you'd like to add? It sounds like you've had some discussions here or some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of that. And going back and forth, the insurance adjuster, Mr. Wylop, I mean, there's a lot that, that area is flat. There's a lot of things that go on. There was an overflow of the retention basin at the end of June, early July. We ended up damming up the south ditch line, which then prevented the creek from backflowing, and then we pumped down that pond. As we pumped down that pond, it seemed to reflect and help the hole 9 on the Crane Meadows golf course, where they weren't pumping water off of their hole just to see it reappear in the following morning. So we made that permanent modification currently in the south ditch line where the creek can't back up and I guess essentially flow backwards. The ponds are meant to flow west to east and then through the creek that's just east of Crane Meadows, and then it comes through the golf course. So at the end of June there, that was going backwards. So I guess in a nutshell, that's what occurred at that time. And I don't believe since we made that change, there was other issues in the rest of the summer. So I guess the main thing moving forward is making sure we continue, I guess, working with the golf course in whatever fashion we need to do to ensure our drainage network isn't causing them any issues. But I don't know. I guess that's why it went to insurance. I guess I think we tried to respond as quick as we could to that once it was known like that it was causing a recurring issue for them. But
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pinstone?
I might be remembering wrong because it happens at times, but wasn't there a motion made at this board to forward this to insurance for that $20-some thousand? It's Dan, right?
yes.
They were sitting right there. Same guy.
Yep, and that's where it went to insurance, and then they did their thing and came back and said, essentially, we have governmental immunity.
Yeah, I think we don't feel right about that. The guy came here. We heard his case. We all agreed collectively as a board that, yeah, he had a loss and it was sustained by whether it was poor engineering or whether it was the change of whatever, but it wasn't there the year before and it was there this year. Just blame it on an act of God when after Public Works redammed and changed that pond, now you don't have issues anymore, right?
Fingers crossed. I don't believe we'll have the issue because it was that, sorry, Dan Wylop, 6304 Weston Ave.
Thank you.
Don't want to get on that.
You're all right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
My concern is that before, you can see in this picture, the field that you guys own across the street from the golf course, that water would leave that property, so through the ground or leave, go into that pond. Now it's all concentrated in a retention pond directly across the street from the golf course. And now we have, in my eyes and people that I've spoken with, very clear evidence that the ground is, I'm probably gonna say this wrong, like permeable between, so it's sharing the water table. And one of my concerns is as that retention pond holds water, I know it's not gonna come from the reservoir anymore, which makes me very happy. But as that pond holds water, my fear is that it artificially raises the groundwater and leaves 9 soupy, muddy, quick to flood again, right? Those are my new concerns. 9 floods, historically, it's flooded about 2 or 3 times, to the point that, it's been major for the golf course. We're not, no one at the golf course is saying that the golf course doesn't flood or doesn't have water problems. We are experts at water problems at the golf course. This was a new water problem where we pump the water would come up through the ground. My fear is if that retention pond is directly across, it holds water, even if it's below my ground, is it artificially raising the water table up and floods 9 sooner? That's a concern. I don't have any proven fact that will happen. We're hopeful that it won't. I've talked to a hydrologist, and they recommended that the pond have liners, because then there is zero concern about the water penetrating or impacting the water table. Mike and I have discussed it, and in brief discussions, I think he's gonna do some looking into it, no commitment, obviously. I mean, there's expenses, and he also has to make sure that it's not gonna impact with the DNR for other aspects. So I mean, there's a lot to it, but it's a concern that I have right now. My email correspondence with Michael makes me feel comfortable that the village is going to continue to work with me on that specific concern. So I can feel in a better place there. I wasn't there a couple weeks ago, because it's a very challenging golf course to own. I didn't know it when I bought it, but I don't want new water issues. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And then the flooding, the loss of revenue, we would have been closed some of those days. We would not have been closed all of those days. We were spending an exorbitant amount of energy pumping off 9 just to pump it again, We rented a extremely large pump. We spent an exorbitant, crazy amount of hours moving water just to be frustrated and over again. And we were neglecting other areas of the golf course, moving the water from 9, because if 9 couldn't get dry, we would never be open. So these are the sorts of things that I was very frustrated with, and I laid out all of what historical our revenue was in that time period. And then here are our additional costs. I did not take into consideration my time, because I'm not a paid employee by the golf course. I did not take into consideration lost wages to my clubhouse employees. I did take into consideration extra hours in my grounds crew employees, right? Like, 'cause that was a hard cost. And then I said, let's just assume that 50% of it is me and Mother Nature and me, and 50% of it is a neighbor putting water accidentally on a neighbor's property. That's kind of where the whole thing. Now, to go to the claim, you guys said, yes, this seems like a valid claim. Have insurance look into it further. Insurance did look into it. In my discussions with him, I believe he agrees that is a valid concern, but the government is afforded many different things. One of them being immunity when they're trying to do greater good for the public. They have protections so that they aren't financially responsible for the challenges that they may cause. However, I said, well, what about AECom? What about, all of these other different aspects? And I said, and if I disagree as a other property owner, that indemnity, like, meaning you just lost, or you just forced me to lose a substantial amount of money here, I can challenge indemnity in court, can I not? And that's where he said yes. And then, so the next steps were, I'd have to file a lawsuit, then it would be discovery, then it would be another portion of adding new people in, and then it would be after discovery, then it would be deciding if there would be a settlement, and if no settlement could be reached, then it could go to lawsuit. That this is the explanation from both my lawyer and from the insurance company, like right following, understanding it. And I'm just sitting here going, but I'm trying to be as reasonable as possible and save everybody money here by just saying, this is where my financial hardship came. And by not filing, by not having the village defend itself, by not having AECom come into it, this seems like by far the most economical fashion to address this. You know, this was the first year that since we've owned the golf course that we didn't pay an employee bonus. Pretty hard to show my employees what financially happened and then come out of my own pocket to spend said bonus dollars. I mean, like, my wife and I do not make, this is not a huge profit center for us. It's an asset that pays for itself and we continue to reinvest into it. It's not our livelihood. And we take great pride in treating our employees as good as we can, because no one's getting rich working out there. I mean, it's a fun, community-based business. It's not a big profit center, and something like this financial hardship could happen naturally, could happen from a neighbor. It was a substantial loss in 24.
So I guess one question I have, so insurance disallowed it. So if this body was to choose to pay out the claim or a portion of it or whatever the motion would be, where does that money come from?
We would have to make that determination, but I think we would also look to the board on where you think it would come out of our budget.
So ultimately, and I understand your hardship, I guess what I'm getting at is, so with insurance not wanting to pay it out, that money is gonna have to be cut from somewhere or come from some pot that benefits everybody here in the village to pay it out, so.
But again, a compromise is sent in the email is if we can continue to work with Public Works and there are things that the village can provide that might be a means of which to help for a long-term solution and provide fill or something else.
And are you okay with that? Or are you looking for some sort of financial compensation?
It's very unlikely that fill would work for us because it would involve downtime.
Yeah.
Grass growing, seed, all of those processes have to happen in the warm months. And in the warm months is when is our revenue, very limited revenue opportunity. And on top of that, raising grounds, albeit, yes, it would redirect water from the fairway, it's going to put water somewhere else. So we're just moving water from hole 9 to in the rough between 1 and 2. Might it make it more playable? Potentially. Might it make it that I still have customers that are pissed or unhappy rather, that there's staying water in every rough, you know, between.
Yeah.
So it's, in theory, it's a possibility, but it's very unlikely that it would, in my perspective.
Well, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add, or does someone want to take a stab at a motion here?
I'm not ready to make a motion, I guess, because I'm not satisfied that we've really exhausted all of the potential solutions. So, Michael, how much more water is in that retention pond now? And and I know it depends on how much rains, I get that. But does it drain, how quickly does it drain out, or what is the system to empty that pond, or is it just evaporation?
At this point, it will end up being just evaporation, similar to the farm field that was there. So it kind of was meant to be an emergency overflow if needed, which it did perform its duty very well last year. Unfortunately, though, there was another unexpected consequence of it holding as much water as it did, because eventually the water is meant to then go back out. So once the creek recedes, it would flow back out to the east and then come back out the creek. So by putting that, essentially making it so that the ditch, it can't flow from the creek into the ponds anymore. So those ponds will only get the little bit of runoff from the north half of Weston Avenue, and then that water is mainly gonna just evaporate out of there. So so it'll be no different than what it was 3 years ago before the pond existed and water drained off Weston Ave. Granted, Weston Ave's a little wider now there, but that water would sit in that farm field until it eventually evaporated away. Cause it didn't flow either way, east or west.
Oh, so is the ground sand?
It's sand with a high groundwater table, yeah. I think it's generally about 3 to 4 feet below. So like that pond that you can see the water just south of Highway 29 there where Tommy Docks is now. That's really just a reflection of groundwater, same thing as the wetlands, that complex there. So I think it's generally around a 1229, 1230 contour. So it's probably always about 2 to 3 feet below what hole 9's elevation is. So the new pond that got put in, its bottom elevation is 1228. So more than likely it's gonna reflect about a foot of groundwater that's just there. So that groundwater it'll have a way of escaping via evaporation, but it's not gonna go anywhere. Yeah.
Why wouldn't it flow back into the creek
It's
as groundwater?
it's gotta get high enough. It's not gonna get high enough with how the outlets are set there.
So, okay, so the elevation of the pond is lower than the creek?
The bottom of the pond is lower than the creek, yeah. And then it has to the pond would have to fill up with about 5 feet of water before it'd be able to then flow out of that pond through the series of culverts to get back to the creek.
And if you lower that dam, the creek would flow into the pond.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to understand.
Yeah. I mean, the only other option I can see in the future is putting some kind of control structure in there where you have it open so water could flow, but then you can close it and then kind of have a sump pump system running so that when it hits a certain level, it starts pumping, recirculating water around. And this, as I told Dan, I think several times, since I started here, this is one of the first things Keith had me look at is how do we improve drainage in this area of the village? Because it's flat and water doesn't go anywhere. And there's been a couple proposals that have been tried. The DNR shut down several of them just due to wetland impacts and some of the other stuff. And it is a challenging area. We got high groundwater, historically hydric soils, not a lot of elevation change.
Is there a storm sewer in the area?
No, not. That was a proposal we looked at and we weren't allowed to do that.
I love that.
Yeah, there was a proposal to go all the way from the Bull Junior, which then the guy to my left right here might not like, to try to get a storm sewer system up there, but that wasn't allowed either.
Jim?
So the land to the north of this pond is vacant this morning, right? If that were to develop, there's no storm sewer. Where does that water go? It winds up in this pond too?
It would, yeah. So at that point, that's where,
But I mean, it's not going to not develop. Sometime between now and when we stop swinging golf clubs, which will be never, it's gonna develop. So this problem will never get better than it is today. Today is the best it will be without making some kind of change, right? Like if tomorrow somebody pulls a permit on it and says, yep, we wanna build, I don't know, Amazon 2.0 or something.
I mean, there's things you could do where you would pipe it across the road into the progress way, so it goes to the wetland instead of the other pond. So then that way that can still circulate itself out eventually without just being trapped. I mean, there's other things we can look at to try to make it so it's still useful. The hard part is just making sure we don't create this this backflow opportunity. I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was Roman, do you remember when Badgerland got built? Was that 2016?
17.
2017, there's a bad rain event there where that wetland complex, so the properties on the north side of Progress Way. Again, the creek flowed backwards, that wetland area flowed, and Progress Way had to be closed because it was underwater. And we were pumping water from Progress Way into the pond where Tommy Docks is. And then after that, we made some changes to the overflow of the wetland, so it could no longer flow north out of the wetland into the pond that's on Progress Way, the north side there, so. I mean. It kind of seems like I don't want to say it's a recurring theme here, but it seems like once every 10 years, there seems to be some kind of rain event where all of a sudden we go, that doesn't work. We need to reevaluate this and look at another solution.
I've been golfing out there for probably 25 years and there is a consistent water, just in that area of the village. And it's not necessarily, there's been times I've been at the course and it's been great but there's other times you drive out there and the ditches are just.
We've had
Lined with
2-3
water.
years where you had to dig 5 feet to touch water.
Yeah.
And then we have, next year you dig a foot and you're splashing water.
Yep.
I mean, we know it, like there's no, I'm not denying it, and I'm not trying to push the buck of my water problem onto the village. It's just, we had a financial hardship from water coming up through the ground on 9. And it's like, if this was, if this was my house and I flooded Joe's house, there's a very clear, something I dug a pond on my property. There is an unintended consequence that I would be responsible for Joe's house, right? Like that is Joe's insurance would then contact my insurance, and there's this whole fun thing. I feel I had financial difficulties from this, and I'm reaching out to my neighbor. Just happens to be, I'm unlucky enough to have my neighbor be the village that's granted immunity that Joe would not be that kind of thing.
That land is so flat. You know, that land is so flat around that area. I'm not sure how can you get the water out of it. It is very difficult, very challenging. We even look at to run the water all the way along the Zinzer to the south.
Doesn't go anywhere.
It didn't work. It doesn't work. There is no slope and there's no make it work.
We have become experts at how to move water on our course. We were not an expert how to move the retention ponds water off our course. The amount of gallons that we moved in that pond last year is insane, because we were running, I forget the numbers, 5 pumps, 5 smaller pumps at any given time. We were running an 8-inch pump that's moving, I'm gonna get the numbers wrong, like 1,700 gallons a minute. And just to have more water come, that is nothing we've seen before. We've invested in our pumping ability on hole 2, which is historically where we've closed, because hole 2 is primarily where there's water all the way across the fairway, and then we're unable to open. And now we put in an automated pumping station on 2 at the end of last year, with the goal of being able to be open faster, right? We're going to fight water for as long as we live. I mean, it is.
You know, excuse me,
Go ahead.
when you pump too much, you start pumping the groundwater. Because the groundwater is too low in there, very shallow. So when you pump too much, too many pump, you get to the groundwater, start pumping it, and you're not gonna get any place.
When I say pump, I'm pumping water that was on top of the ground.
Yeah.
We have never, in talking to my grounds crew, ever pumped water off of the ground just to have it come back up through the ground.
That
In the history of Crane Mountain.
Okay.
that same weekend, 7/8 of last year, that was the same weekend of Taste and Glow. Their event got canceled because of rain. Business Highway 51 by Benke Auto and everything, that flooded Schofield Ave. I mean, it was an excessive amount of rain that we had, and I'm not discounting that you
I'm
had.
not denying we had a lot of rain.
But so I am gonna kind of call the question here though, because we have 45 other agenda items here, and at some point someone's gonna have to take a stab at a motion here to kind of move this along, so. Anybody want to take a stab at it?
Just out of curiosity, what do you give out for bonuses on average every year?
Typically, we give out, would be about 10 to 15%, right in that of their yearly, what they made. So every employee, depending, we have some employees that work 200 hours, we have some employees that work 900 hours. So it's that's typically where we fall. We always pay it out specifically on Thanksgiving week, because we think it might be nice for the holiday gift buys.
There was a dollar amount of what, 23,000 that was mentioned, right?
Clerk Brame just looked it up for me. The claim was $24,413. $5,853 of that was for costs. $18,560 was for lost revenue to equal the 24,413.
Me personally, I understand your loss with our insurance company not wanting to pay it out and us having to take that money from somewhere. I would prefer to see us continue to work with him with you guys from a public works standpoint than pay out any sort of monetary loss here. That's my 2 cents.
Yes, well, from the insurance claim here too, it says that there's really nothing on our end that was, designed improperly or constructed improperly. It was just, the amount of rain at one time, so
So,
I don't know what
Michael,
else we're gonna do on our end.
how realistic is a liner?
It's realistic, I guess. I wanna, before we put a liner in, I'd wanna make sure there isn't an unintended consequence, so like. If we put a liner in, it would mean any water that goes in wouldn't then infiltrate down into the groundwater table. But as Dan said, it's a two-way street, so now if there is water that's coming in there, and that's a large surface area that's evaporating out. Is that also a good equilibrium where now we lose that area, so groundwater around that pond now would raise up, several feet higher than it normally would without having the chance to evaporate out at, whatever it is, a quarter inch a day or something like that, so. I just wanna make sure that doesn't create some other unintended consequence when we go and spend, a liner itself, I looked up, would be about $100,000 in the material before we install it, so if we do that, I'd really hate to have to go back and all of a sudden take it out because now there's a different consequence that we saw.
Water come up, is gonna lift it up. That's
Yeah, I
all it
mean,
is to it.
yeah, I mean, we'd have to find ways to make sure it's anchored and everything else, but I just wouldn't want there to be a different consequence that all of a sudden comes up and we're back here going, well, now we need to remove that and I mean, we did, we did pump the pond down. I personally was out there filling pumps at, midnight. I mean, I felt bad, like I did, it felt bad that we had a business owner that wasn't able to be open for
At
business.
some point, I mean, I understand why you felt bad, but
Yeah.
we also can't control Mother Nature either, so there's
Yeah.
that aspect of it as well, and.
It was more than Mother Nature. I understand we had a substantial rainfall. This was a new problem caused by a retention pond that was put directly across the street from me. That's where my argument in this is I'm not sitting here going, we have flooding issues. I know we have flooding issues, but I was unable to operate a business, and I think, are you in business or a business owner? So if someone took away your ability to make revenue, would you sit there and go, okay, it's okay, it's okay? You would do everything in your power to go, hey, like I should have some sort of compensation, and I need security that it won't happen again. And right now I'm of the belief that I think Michael's working very well with me now that we're both in agreement of the flooding problem I'm trying to address. I'm not trying to address my golf course floods. I'm trying to address water coming up through the ground. We were closed because of an unintended consequence of putting a retention pond. I never asked for this retention pond. That's where I'm coming from. Now, I understand that I have 6 months to decide how I want to move forward from a disallowance. And then whether that's lawsuit or other things along those lines, that's why I'm following this through, and I have been very persistent. And I had to push the insurance guy. I kept on telling me I was top of his desk. I don't know if you guys have heard that from him before. And it literally didn't get action until I said, you have 2 weeks to figure this out. Otherwise, I'm just handing it over to Susan Van Roy.
Yeah, assuming that.
You're not gonna get any.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna.
Right.
Does anybody want to take a stab at a motion before we do that? Jamie, you ready?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, then you had recent discussion with Michael about,
Yes,
okay, and so you feel like you're making some headway or at least having some discussion?
yes, positive discussion for, for future relief if it's proven, or if there's more continuous flooding on 9 that's not of what it was historically. I'm mostly concerned with the, if you take about 100-foot by 50-foot section of 9, that's closest to that retention pond. That's where I'm mostly worried about soft ground being shared water table if it's high, but I think we're in a good spot there. And then he is.
So as long as you guys are having some dialogue, Michael, do you have some opinion of how much time you would need to fully research this?
I think it's been fully researched.
Yeah, I mean, as far as
Right.
getting it to act like it historically did, I think we're there. It's just, is that good enough? Do we just leave good enough alone and not worry about it? And then, I guess as we watch water levels, I mean, we know now what we can do to alleviate that. The elevations of some of those storm inlets are known. And that's, I guess, really what we were documenting a lot last summer was if the water level's here in the pond and that inlet is now exposed, we can see it. That seemed to be where the water level then on the course was going away. It was just when, I mean, the 15-inch, 18-inch pipes are completely underwater. In the pond itself, that whole 9 was also underwater. So once we got it down low enough where those pipes are now visible out of the ground, that seemed to work. So, and we do have some good visual cues knowing, okay, we should still be good with this water level.
So could you develop a contingency plan?
Yeah, so that's essentially what we have is, we know if it looks like it's starting to get high, we'll get our own pumps out there and make sure that it's at a spot that's reasonable, but
So if we postpone this for a month and he offers a written contingency plan to you, would that be heading in the right direction?
Well, I'm expecting, I mean, we already have that. I believe that I had 2 concerns. One was that there was a financial loss, and one was that I wanted security, or a written documentation that I'm going to continue to get support to prevent this from happening again. And I've succeeded on that with Michael. I feel like we're working towards something very positively. Right now, the only agenda or open item is that there was a loss had by Crane Meadows Golf Course, and that's where and Jamie, you mentioned that he's saying that they did nothing wrong. Well, listen, listen. Everybody in here knows that, and he can't say it because then it's going to be used against their insurance company in the future. I mean, when I talk to him on the phone, he's like, "Oh yeah, what a tough situation. He sympathized with me, understood that there was a problem, but he would never put it in writing. And it's very frustrating.
So in the spirit of trying to move this along, I am gonna make a motion to move to disallow the claim of Crane Meadows Golf Course. Claim number WM 0003719200085. We have a second.
I'll second.
All right, so we got it on the floor. So does anybody have anything further to add on that motion?
I think maybe we should further discuss if we're going to have a financial hardship. I know Michael's doing everything on his end, but if that's on the table or not.
I agree with you that I think Michael is doing everything that he can. I guess where I struggle is that money has to come from somewhere. And it's hard for me. I understand where you're coming from. I do. I mean, that weekend, but I look at the date and I know in my heart that weekend was an extremely substantial weather event and it may have just been perfect timing because we had just rebuilt the road. That was the first time that, and not only that, but throughout the month of June, the ground was extremely saturated.
It was 5 weeks. It wasn't a weekend.
It was
5 weeks.
yeah, correct. All of May, all of June last year, it was extremely wet, extremely.
We were closed for peak golf season through July. I have pictures of 75 and sunny and beautiful out and everybody enjoying life while we're pumping water off now.
Yeah, I understand.
It wasn't just simply a lot of rain in a week.
So there's a motion on the floor. Does anybody else have any further commentary? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, no,
No.
the ayes have it, 3-2.
So can I ask what my next recourse is? Like, so this is closed and the village deems this as no financial responsibility.
My understanding based off of this tonight, correct me if I'm wrong. We have chosen to disallow the claim, so he has 6 months to decide what he would like to do, correct? So that's kind of where we're at.
Still with the understanding that
We
Work
will,
together.
we will work together to make sure this doesn't happen again. I don't want you to think that that's not the
So Crane
case.
Meadows, you talk about it not coming out of anybody's budget. So it has to come out of a small business in your community's budget. I just wanna make sure that we're all on the same page here because we don't have the funds that a tax basis, revenue basis that the village of Weston has. This is a small business in a small community that is paying for this, not, taking $500 from 30 different funds or whatever, however you guys would deem that. I just really want to understand that because I'm also very invested in this community. Owned rental property, now own 140 acres because I've just bought a whole bunch more. And now I have to think that I'm about to build at this golf course and now I'm going to increase your guys' revenue by tax basis. And I have to, in my mind, think that it is okay for me to actually increase the support to Weston. Do you see how hard that is?
I understand. I think all of us understand the
I
situation.
see your basis, but we're still talking, and again, I have a pond next to the river and I understand what goes on with the groundwater. I really do. But the idea that we set a precedent for making a payment based on a weather event is problematic for me in the event that I get it.
If you pull up that picture, you have how many acres of water that backflowed into this retention pond that then therefore moved into my property. This wasn't rain, this was flood water. That's where, if this was from 7 or 8 inches of rain, so be it. I'm not going to be here and be upset about 7 inches of rain. This was about moving a tremendous amount of water through our property because that someone decided to connect this to the village's reservoir.
Did it happen again Did it happen again
It
last
didn't
summer?
happen again because he dammed it and prevented it from happening. That doesn't make the $50,000 in lost revenue wrong.
I understand where you're coming from. I do, but I made a motion, it passed 3-2, so at this point, that's where we're at. I mean, Michael is, I'm sure, gonna continue to work with you to try to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future, but I guess that's kind of the point we're at right now. I'm not really sure what else to tell you at this
So
point.
I understand. I have 6 months to file a lawsuit. And then it will get more expensive for all parties involved. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna move back to minutes from previous meetings. Item number 4 and 5, approval of January 20th, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting and approval of February 3rd, 2025 Special Board of Trustees meeting.
Move to approve item 4 and 5.
Motion by Zagami. Second by Pincinel. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Acknowledge reports, minutes from boards, committees, commissions.
Move to acknowledge 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 concurrently.
We have a motion by Pincinel. Second by Zagami. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Acknowledge reports from departments. We want to take them all at once, get it on the floor.
Acknowledge 18, 20 concurrently.
Motion by Pincinel.
Second.
Second by Jordan. On the question. Go ahead, Rim.
This for the administrator, the Wisconsin Department of Administration numbers, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but they're conflicting with that report that was released by the county. Was it last year or 2 years ago that I think Jennifer brought it to us from planning that said like maritime community is growing and that growth is taking place in Weston, or was that just that the growth in Maritime County is taking place in Weston, but the overall population will still drop? Did I read that wrong? This shows that Maritime County will be net negative people moving forward, right?
This actually shows that the whole region will be net negative people.
I don't care
moving
what county we're working Marathon, but yes, all of them show a net negative minus what, like 5 less or something.
Yes, so these are the updated numbers that they just released. And so while I am sure that previously that it showed that the growth would be here, these are updated numbers. North Central Regional Planning Commission has come and said that the census that these were based off of, the 2020 census that these were based off of was a hard census because of COVID. And so it will be interesting if these actually come to fruition because people were in unusual places under quarantine. But at this moment, it does reflect a decrease in population.
So that the county is not growing, so it does conflict with that other report that was.
Right, the other report was was done in 2022.
What, but this one was done in
21.
This is in January 2025. These are
Okay.
updated numbers. But again, it'll be interesting to see if these actually come to fruition. I don't know that census,
Maybe they didn't get good responses for a lot of.
yes,
lot of
and I
things.
think our population trends have always been different really than what has been released, but I shared this just because it does show a substantial increase for the entire region, not just Marathon County. So, and these will be the numbers that from North Central Conservancy, North Central Planning will be putting into their grants and information because this is the data that they receive from the state.
Any updates on the outstanding items of the village attorney? You know, landscape contract, outfit with the building, the bid document, planning for the undue burden for relocation of utilities.
Relocation of utilities, we met on Thursday about doing an ordinance, so that would be forthcoming that we would put into place a similar ordinance to what the state has for the relocation of utilities. The landscaping for the municipal center, Attorney Edie had come back and shared some information. I said that we're still trying to work with Revi, who is the subcontractor. And his further suggestion was that we continue to work with Revi and see if we can come to a solution before we would take it the next step.
So are we kind of in a holding pattern with them until
Until
spring?
Until spring.
Okay.
What was the additional one, trustee Pincinel?
Well, I didn't say it yet, but you must be able to see from over there, so that's good. Town of Weston lease update.
He's gonna be sending me a draft agreement. Again, when we touched base on Thursday, I said that if we could, we'd like to get that one in place by midsummer, so he's gonna be sending me a draft updated. It'll be a new lease. It won't be an amendment. It'll be a new lease.
And we talked about it in finance, but if you could brief the board on the cloud permit.
Yep. So Attorney Edie had a conversation with Cloud Permit. The way that conversation was left is that they were to follow up with us if because we had it for such a limited time frame, they were to follow up with us on what they would like, if they would like anything, and we haven't received any follow-up additionally from them. So at this moment, we will wait to see if we receive any follow-up. It's been, I would say, 3+ weeks.
Can we follow up with them?
Attorney Edie said that the way that, again, it was left with them is that they were going to follow up, and he felt like that was fairly clear in their discussion.
Does any other directors have stuff to add to their reports?
The only other thing I just want to add, just to make sure that I mention, because we had talked about the approval here, was that WASA Events did make the determination that due to scheduling errors and conflicting events in other communities, that Oktoberfest event will not be held in Kennedy Park this year. They will still do the Off the Square concert that will be here in Weston on August 20th. But just noting that that Oktoberfest event won't be taking place this year.
Thank you. Chief, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I know it's been a slow start to the meeting here, but if I can just have a couple minutes, I want to talk about our internship here real quick. At our last board meeting, the board voted to allow us to start an internship program that we will kick off here in June. So basically what that is we will be recruiting a maximum of 3 individuals that will come work for us that have no current training. So a lot of them are probably going to be very young, out of high school. They will come to us. They will physically live at the fire station. We'll be using the station here in Weston for that. And while they're residing at the fire station, they will work for us. They're paid $7.50 an hour because they're getting free room and board. But they will live at the station. They will each be assigned to a crew. So they will basically be working full time unless they're in school. And then if they're on a school day, they'll obviously be at class. But they will get their firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and driver operator certifications along with EMT basic and paramedic. The only education they'll be responsible for is 50% of the paramedic program they will have to pay for. We'll pay for everything else. And most of that is funded through grant monies. So it's a program that has not really been in this part of the state. It's been common in the South Madison area, really. Some of the smaller departments around Madison have done it. And then there's some departments in the southeastern part of the state that do it. But so it'll be a 2-year program from start to finish. And then at the end of the 2 years, if we need people, hopefully we can retain some of those people. Otherwise, they'll be prime candidates to get jobs elsewhere in the area. So we posted that last Thursday and we've had 7 applicants so far.
Outstanding question. And essentially that's going to, it's just putting another body in our rigs, short for very little cost to us.
Correct. And again, they're going to be very, especially that first year, they'll be very inexperienced. And really for the first few months, they'll have no training, so they'll be very little help to us. But that second year, they'll be an extra hand. And then the real big thing is to try to create a funnel to get more firefighter paramedics into the whole region, really, because it's difficult right now.
Okay, go ahead.
What guarantee they're gonna stay there after they graduate, went through this program?
Absolutely none. Most of them will probably leave. That's what usually happens with. I did an internship program myself. And it's very common that they leave. And there's gonna be a lot of them that we won't have spots to hire them. There may be
several years in a row where we have interns come out of the program, but we just don't have an opening for them. So even if they wanted to stay, we won't have a spot for them. But the hope is that they come, they finish their program, and the other thing that it really gives us that's nice, it's a 2-year interview. We can do an interview process and somebody can make themselves look really good for 30 minutes or an hour during interview process, but it's pretty hard to fake it for 2 years. So we're gonna know if there's somebody that we don't want during that program also.
And what you're paying them is the minimum wage, right?
Correct. And believe it or not, we're actually one of the highest paid internships. Pittsburgh down by Madison does it, and they pay their interns $300 a month. So we are paying them significantly more than that.
All right,
And
thank you.
once they get some of their training, they'll be able to help out with transfers and stuff too,
Correct.
which is a huge revenue booster for the district that we're missing out on a little bit right now, so.
Yep.
Chief Hunt?
Yep, I just have our report in there. We had 106 calls for the month, and if you look on the bottom, I was a little concerned because we kept seeing this other jurisdiction for calls in there. And it explains it a little bit on the bottom. So we go to different areas, or a call starts in some other area, or we're checking for somebody, and that's what those 45 numbers are in that CAD call stats. So we had 47 crashes and 260 warnings and 309 traffic citations for the month. So it's pretty consistent with what we've been doing in the past. So I was just happy to see what those other jurisdiction numbers were. So any questions for the police department?
I think so. Thank you. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add to their report? I should have asked. Mr. Maloney told me to make sure I called on them, so I did. Should feel special. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
I just have a question. Chief. Maybe I can ask you later. What's your project on at the building?
So oversight board will have some decisions to make coming up. We're working on it. We're trying to find funding. We've been working jointly with a letter, and yep, he's on the list for that. So we're a little ways out. Hopefully it can go up a bit coming up here, but we have to secure where those funds are going to come from too. So
Is the architect has a schedule when to finish it?
no schedule yet. So one of the things we wanted to look at is we wanted to get a good snapshot of our budget. So we're getting part of that now since we started a new year, because last year we really didn't have an idea on the budget. And it's the first year we're actually operating off from it. So oversight board meets on the 26th, and there'll be some decisions there for that, as far as they're working on the design right now. They're finishing that up. We have a good blueprint for it. But we just have to make some decisions at that meeting if it's going to go out for bid or not. So
90 days for him is enough. They can finish.
yeah.
Usually they do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nothing else on reports. Move on to work product transmittals. Items number 27, 28, 29, January building permits, code enforcement report, and draft December 2024 budget status.
Or, Mr. Chair, I think we have to vote on that now.
What was that?
We have to vote on a motion.
Correct. He was making a motion.
There's already a motion to move to acknowledge 18 through 26, right?
Oh,
You can ask Madam Clerk.
You are correct.
That's
I
what I said.
apologize. My bad.
No, I said acknowledge.
Are you acknowledging the reports?
Yeah,
There's already a motion
27,
on the floor.
28, and 29.
No, you're talking about 18 to,
Yeah, that hasn't been voted on.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I apologize.
Carry
So
on.
we have a motion on the floor in a second. Any further on the discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Now we move on to work product transmittals, 27, 28, 29. It's your pleasure.
Move to acknowledge 27, 28, 29.
Motion by Zagami, second by Jordan. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Consent agenda, item number 31, vouchers.
Move to approve vouchers as presented.
We have a motion by Pincinot,
Second?
second by Jordan. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Ordinances number 33, ordinance number 25001. An ordinance adopting the 2025 official zoning map and official extraterritorial zoning map for the village of Weston.
Move to recommend approval of ordinance number 25-001.
Motion by Pincinot,
Second?
second by Jordan. On the question, Hearing none, all those in favor
Yeah,
signify.
as you were.
I'm sorry, my bad.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
Were the only changes made to formal rezoning, so it's run through the Board of Trustees and or planning?
Yes.
I know like last year or 2 years ago, there was something that, there was an error in mapping on like Fuller Street or something, there was something weird like that we found.
Nothing.
Excellent. And then after this is approved, then that'll get uploaded to the site, yeah?
Yes, Nate will do that.
No further questions. Thank you.
All right. Any more on the discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Number 34, ordinance number 25002, an ordinance to create section 82.114, vehicles abandoned and junk.
Move to adopt ordinance 25-002 as presented.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Pincinel, seconded by Zegami on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Resolutions, we have none. Unfinished business, item number 35, discussion regarding an update on the Kennedy Park renovation and capital campaign.
Monthly report is in the packet and split in between the renovation and the capital campaign update. Happy to take questions.
We'll let Jamie go first.
Okay. Well, I have my own report, if you don't mind if I read it. Because I know Steve, we've had personal conversations in regards to what's going on, what's not going on. So I took it upon myself to write my own report. We're okay with taking
Sure.
the time to read that? Okay. Okay, so Kennedy Park renovation campaign update. Over the past couple of weeks, we have held 2 meetings to discuss the Kennedy Park renovation project. The first meeting took place on January 30th, followed by our most recent discussion on February 13th. Takeaways from this discussion include February 13th meeting focus. I requested Tim from the CVB to attend the February 13th meeting. He was more than willing to decide to come and decided to come. During this meeting, we focused on defining the mission and the vision for the campaign. The mission revolves around our primary objectives, helping us understand the main goals, while the visions emphasize the desired outcome and aims to motivate the stakeholders. Additionally, we discussed how the ask letter would include the economic impact of the Kennedy Park renovation, outlining how this project will benefit the community economically. Tim White from CVB and Marcus, a new member of our strategic planning campaign group, will be focusing on revising the ask letter. Once we have the revised ask letter, we will be creating a training program to ensure that all asks align and present the same marketing information when engaging with the stakeholders. We also spoke about adding testimonials to our current video created by G. Morty. The plan is to include footage of kids and incorporate the talking points such as why grandma can now come in with her wheelchair thanks to walking pass. We all have a place to play ball, even though it rained outside, we can still play because we have turf fields, and we can now play baseball at night because we have lights and so on. We also discussed the reaching out for testimonials from the alumni group. Excuse me, village website updates. I personally requested that Kennedy Park renovation and capital campaign be added to the village website. Nate did a great job on creating that page. Donation information. To ensure clarity on where monetary donations should be directed, I also requested we have a designated contact person with the community foundation. We also plan to add a donate button to the website for easy contribution access. And I don't know, maybe Nate is that something that you can do on your end? Create a button for that?
Sure.
Okay, great.
It's just changing where it says donate now into, so it would look button-like.
Progress tracking. I also suggested that we have a goal thermometer to show the progress of the campaign, both on the website and on Kennedy Park's sign at the park. Community engagement. Eric from DCE Youth Baseball is coordinating dining for cause nights at local restaurants. The first event was held at Polito's Pizza and raised $270 for the cause. On February 24th, there will be another event at Bruce Brothers and another on March 18th at Red Robin. Rutler's master plan update, Michael and Nate from REI, who is also part of our strategic planning group, will be updating the Rutler master plan to ensure the maps for each phase coincide with the key. Currently, they do not align, but this update will make it less confusing when the community researches the project on the website. Grant applications, Sarah Olafson and members of the Friends Group have requested and submitted 3 grants. One for Impact 100, which is $100,000, and 2 for $25,000 awards. Additionally, the Jude's Family Foundation and Davis Foundation grants were requested and submitted for a range from $1,000 to $100,000. There has been no word yet on whether these grants have been approved. CBB visit Wassa Tim White is coordinating and reaching out to another DMO designation marketing organizations. He has also sent a message to Sarah from WEDC, Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. And as of today, he is still waiting for both responses. Tim will be using AI software called Strategic Planning Master. And as of today, he's currently waiting upon Giebert to receive all the current marketing materials created by G. Morty to create that material. He will proceed with the plan. We will use this master plan for our next Kennedy Park renovation capital campaign meeting. Last but not least, Tim will be letting some of the key area influencers know about this project as he continues to meet with them. For example, he's having coffee with the owner of Rocket Industrial tomorrow. Phase 1 update. Last but not least, staff has received 90% plans for phase 1. These should get wrapped up early March, and then bids go out shortly after. Stormwater management has been approved by the DNR. REI is also in the progress of getting the rest of the park to 60%, which is staged for review this spring in March. Director Wadowski has met with other local school districts to discuss their experiences regarding their filter plans. As of now, we just have the project fund update as of December 31st, 2024. The $766,000 from our ARPA funds and $24,200 approximately from the DC Everest Youth Baseball, which is 25% of the season's banner sales. They also asked softball to do the same, which we need to follow up on.
Trustee Wyland, can I just correct that the 24,000 is there, that youth baseball just gave that donation. The 25% of banner sales would still be coming because they're selling those now. This was just, they wanted to start it with the donation.
Okay. And let's see, so I guess I do have a question on my own report though, because I feel like we, in every, I don't know, in a lot of the updates, it feels like this 90% plans for phase 1 has been the same since July, along with the 60% plan for the REI. And I was just hoping, Michael, maybe you can explain that a little bit better.
Yeah, with the retaining wall height, REI needed to get a structural engineer on board to design the retaining wall for that field so that it doesn't fall over. So that's really the last step, is getting that retaining wall designed. So until they have that done, it's not complete. So Kurt with REI said they should have that stamped retaining wall design by the first week of March. So that's really been the last part that's been holding up that lower field, getting that completed. And then the rest.
The wall goes, Mike?
What?
Where is the retaining wall go?
Behind home plate, and then also in the outfield, kind of center field, almost all the way from left field to, foul pole in the outfield. I mean, it'll start at 0, and then I think at the high point in the outfield, it gets to about 4.5 feet, but behind home plate, it's almost 9 feet.
You don't want a tidal wave of dirt.
Correct, yeah. So,
No pun intended.
yeah.
Did you have anything you'd like to add, Jeff? Thank you, by the way, Jamie, for your report.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I do. So this is for the administrator. So I understand the Parks Committee, the core plan, and that was adopted by the Parks Committee and the board, right? And then both parks and the board agreed that the Friendly Kennedy Park, they lead the way for fundraising in this and make it a privately funded renovation of the park, less the $775-ish that were retained from ARPA, so it wouldn't be a liability on the tax roll, right? In 24, we made kind of a limited amount of measurable progress, right? We had a groundbreaking, some preliminary plans, but like you said, the plans we're still stuck at that 90 and the 60 because we've got some other pieces that we're waiting on. The most recent dollar update here is 24,248 as of December 31, which is odd that it's over 2 months old and you guys met last week. That were there no dollars raised in the last 2 months? Maybe, I don't know that. But at that pace, if you take 15 million divided by 24,000, you're at 600 years without adjustment for inflation. What's your plan to get this done in less than 600 before 26, 25?
It's a really good question, and it's also what we talked about last week, Thursday, in the aspect that when the Friends Group has gone to donors, they just mentioned that the number does seem large. And oftentimes when you start big campaigns like this, there is some reluctance to be the first big donor. And then once you secure the first big donor, it happens a little bit more quickly. So we did have a conversation about focusing on Field 2. And although the overall project is still the 14.5 million, that we would focus on making sure that we would raise the funds for Field 2. So that's approximately 800,000, 850,000. So the strategic plan that they'll be putting forward and the focus will be on how to raise the 850,000 to ensure that we can construct the next field next year and to keep that momentum forward. So I understand that the number looks small, but they're just getting going, and they're a group of parents and volunteers, and there's been good attendance at the meeting and their hearts are in it. I don't have concerns that their hearts are in the right place and that we will help them along as much as we can every step.
What's the contingency plan for the project if the Friends of Kennedy Park dissolves, or if they don't come up with the money in 5 years or less, what that timeline is?
So super credit to staff here that the thought of that was the phasing, right? We can pay for Field 1. If we only get through Field 1, then we've got a great new field. If we could pay for Field 2, we'll get through Field 2, and then we have 2 great fields. So if we would hit a point where we couldn't go any further, we would be in such a place where the park would be added to and we could utilize those facilities that we've added to the park. But I mean, again, the ultimate goal is that it would all be done. And I get it seems like a lot right now, but it does eventually happen. You gotta crawl, walk, run.
And with what Pat Snyder brought to the table today, I mean, that might be millions
And
right there. So.
I mean, that's not gonna happen overnight either. That may be the end of this year before we ever get an answer on what happened here tonight. So I would agree that with the crawl, walk, run statement, that sometimes you gotta get the wheels moving and then take off with it.
What resources are being provided by the village, the Friends of Kennedy Park, to aid them in their successful campaign goals?
So up until this point, we did pay for the marketing pieces that we'll be utilizing. If there would be some additional marketing or other fundraising assistance, we would have to explore what that looked like and what the cost of that would be. Tim White did offer some really great videography assistance, and he said that the CBB would assist in covering those costs. So that was a big benefit. In addition to that, we'll just help them through these pieces of making sure that the updates are provided and in writing, that the strategic plan is in writing. And then obviously all of Michael's time with the engineering and the reviewing of the plans and ensuring that, you know, the bidding process, we are a huge part of the engineering construction piece.
I don't know how many meetings were held with the Friends of Kennedy Park in 24, but in 25, looks like there've been two, spaced about 2 weeks apart. Is that the regular meeting schedule? Every 2 weeks they will be meeting?
I don't know that
I'm
it'll be
hoping we're,
every 2 weeks, but
well, Tim, yeah, he just needs the marketing material to create the strategic plan, and then we'll set a date.
Okay. And so that, since our marketing firm withdrew, that's the new plan is to utilize the CVB to assist in the marketing.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And then with that amended ask letter, which great to hear that we're working on that and amended that, because I think it was adopted or drafted or whichever last year, and I'm just out there. When do you anticipate that to hit mailboxes?
I don't think that we have a date yet. We'll have to talk about once it's amended. We did talk that we're hopeful by the time we bid that we would have some construction happening around the June timeframe at the park. That's also when our next quarterly newsletter goes out. And if we could get those additional videography pieces done in these next 2 months, let's say June 1st, we've got construction equipment on the ground. The newsletter goes out and the ask letter is included in that. And there's an additional mailing to those that won't be reached by our target audience. That June timeframe is sort of the goal, because it would be easy to see with construction happening, progress being made at the park.
Okay, thank you.
Marcus and Tim are working on the ask letter.
Yeah, I think so correct me if I'm wrong, is this currently, this is earmarked to be talked about at the board level every month? Is that, I don't know if I feel that's completely necessary. It sounds like in your report, the parks and Friends of Kennedy are chugging along. It's gonna take some time. I wonder if we move to maybe a quarterly thing. I know one of the things that we talked about at our strategic plan when we did that was a lot of our staff just endlessly attending meeting after meeting after meeting, to the point that you're spending more time attending meetings than actually getting things done. And sometimes I wonder if it's not better to just let things go for a little while. Sounds like you've got a handle on it, and have them come back when there's something the board needs to act on. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but I don't feel that this is a item that needs to be discussed here every month. I think it should stay at parks for a while until there's some clearer direction on what we need to do.
Well, I guess with our personal conversations, I thought you wanted a detailed.
I did for
report.
tonight because I was getting phone calls left and right from numerous people at the parks level. From you, Sean, and a number of different, so I wanted an update tonight so we could make sure that this was on track. And then the intent is to send it back to parks. I mean, that's kind of the way things are supposed to flow, is the communities do all the work, and then when there's something that needs to be acted upon, it comes here. I don't know if I feel that it needs to always be here, but that's just me. Jim?
I tend to agree with what you're saying, but this is the first real data that we've seen, and it never even made it in the packet, right? Like what's here, this is really the first report we've gotten on Kennedy Park, other than the like trickles of we're at 60 and 90% of the plans. This is a $15.5 million project. I mean, it's like a municipal center plus a little bit, right? It's kind of big, right? It's pretty significant. I think it should be on the radar. It could be a one-page outfit, but it should also be in parks. It's not like this stuff, no one has their thumb on it. That's why I asked, what's our plan to get this done sooner than 600 years? We don't have a time. Today I asked, what is the timeline? We don't have a timeline. There isn't one. So to not have that,
It's not gonna happen overnight. And I guess the point that I'm making is it seems like there's some people who I think seem to expect that it's gonna happen overnight. From the conversations that I've had, and that's where it's getting a little frustrating, because you get all these different entities fighting against each other behind the scenes, at least from what I saw, and that gets a little frustrating.
Yeah, well, it's sat for months. It's
Correct.
sat throughout
Thanksgiving.
But it seems like right
it's-
now, things are headed in the right direction, so I guess what I'm asking
It is.
does it need to
It
be
is.
here?
I felt good about the last one.
So let's continue to make sure, it doesn't have to be a 20-page, 20-minute deal. It could be a, hey, this is what we are, our number was 24,000, now it's 224,000. Where our plans are at 90 and 100%.
Could that not just be part of Sean's report?
It
or
could, but it's
Jamie's
not.
report every
This
month?
is the first time it's been there.
I don't think it's going to be
Jamie, do
in
you
that
wanna chime in
detail.
here?
So why can't it be part of the monthly report from the Parks Committee?
I wish it was.
It surely should. It's not on there. It doesn't exist there.
We can attach this report is on the back of Sean's report. I mean,
I would be fine with that instead of having I don't feel we need a separate agenda item to update us unless there's something that we need to act on. Just as long as we can see that report every month, whether it be in Sean's packet or the Parks and Rec packet that gets attached to the meeting, I'm fine with that. Part of me feels like this constant drumbeat of, I understand where you're coming from, that it's taken a little bit to get there, but at some point, everybody's just attending meetings and nothing's actually getting accomplished, and that gets, I guess, frustrating too. So
Which meetings are you referring to?
the Friends of
park?
Kennedy Park meetings,
No.
parks meetings, board meeting, I mean, this is getting talked about repeatedly, and it should, but not necessarily at this level. It can be attached in a report. It doesn't need to be an agenda item here every month.
Right. Well, when you don't have the information and nothing's moving, you have nothing to report on at the Parks meeting, Steve. But now that there's momentum and we have a
That's what I'm
group,
saying.
yeah, now we have, you know, we have a game plan. We have, you know, we're going to have a strategic plan, so. But I guess I can get with Sean and I don't know, I guess I don't want to do Sean's work either, so.
I agree with you. You shouldn't have to.
Right.
You shouldn't. I agree.
I mean, we had the report in the packet. Now, the pieces from the meeting on Thursday weren't in the packet because the packet goes out on Tuesday. Those can be added for parks, but I mean, is there something else that's missing from the
Yeah, there
report that you want us to add? And then we can attach it either to my report or to Sean's report. We can have it as part of the reports.
I think it's maybe a combination of kind of how Jamie alluded to, that the project has been extremely slow to move and not a lot of progress has been made. The last 8 or 9 weeks, right? You had a meeting and I had it written down. January, you had 2 meetings in the last 2 weeks, right? Since the last board meeting, there's been 2 meetings at Friends of Kennedy Park. 4 board meetings before that, there were none or no productive meetings. So here we sit, we're almost a year into this project. And there was nothing to report on because there was nothing. No one's looking at it. No one's like asking the question of, hey, what does this timeline look like? If it's a 10-year project, a 20-year project, or a 620-year project. I'm not asking for it to get done in a year. It'd be cool if it did, but I don't think it will. But the fact that we have this large of an investment in our community, just hanging out there with no idea where it is, it's just out in the wind. I don't agree with that.
Shane, you sound like you got something you'd like to say.
It takes time to start the project, especially at the beginning of it.
Mhm.
Things doesn't happen with this type of finger. I tell people getting together, they have some idea, they gotta put them together, they gotta put their act together. Fundraising, $15 million, that's a big task. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. I was part of the committee for Greenham Fieldhouse. It took us at least 3 months before we just start knocking somebody's door. It just takes time. Because you gotta be prepared when you go out there.
It takes time, but you also have to have a plan.
Well, these are all part of preparation.
And
You gotta be ready.
And we're almost to that point, so
Okay,
I feel good about it.
well, it's good.
I do too. I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm saying is maybe we let Parks and Friends of Kennedy Park run with it for a couple months and come back to us in May, or maybe we do a quarterly update. I don't know if it needs to be on your monthly, is all I'm saying. I mean, we'll see the updates. in parks and, from Sean, as well as the notes or the meeting minutes. So that's, I guess that's where I'm at with it.
Okay,
All right. Item number 36, discussion regarding an update on the potential addition of pickleball courts.
just a comment. Could you add that project also to discussion with the representative? When you meet with him?
We could
That's
talk.
what I asked him, if we can have only one project or a couple of them. He said you can do that, so.
Yeah.
And then as for the cost goes, I should have all the cost estimate for it. If it doesn't, give me a call, I'll take care of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else to add on pickleball? Is this another thing that was requested to be here every month or no? I'm just
Yes,
curious.
it was
Does
requested.
this need to at this point? I mean, I don't, to me, it seems like things have kind of stalled out with the pickleball group and I'm not trying to. But I mean, at this point, are we okay with leaving it in your hands and Sean and whoever that group is to try to figure things out until it
I'd like
come
to
back
be-
here?
I'd like to be involved with that. If you don't mind, so.
Yeah,
Would it be acceptable that this one would come back quarterly then too?
I'm fine with that. Anybody else have anything to add on pickleball? Hearing none, we'll move on to 37, acknowledge quarterly development agreements report.
Move to acknowledge the quarterly development report as presented and encourage staff to reference this document regularly to ensure we are providing a high level of service to our residents.
I'll second.
Motion by Pincinel, second by Jordan. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 38, discussion and or action on addition to the elected and appointed village officials handbook, section 1.10, trustee salary and stipend compensation. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve the addition of section 1.0 trustee salary and stipend compensation to the elected and appointed officials handbook.
You have a motion by Pincinel,
Second.
a second by Wyland. On the question? Mr. Pincinel?
Page 224, the word Board of Trustees, I believe, should be called out and then defined and referred to as board throughout the document. The way it reads now, there's not definition as to which board is making the decision, Public Safety Board, Board of Trustees, etc. So if you read it, it's a little bit tricky where we talk about a public safety board and we talk about the Board of Trustees, just like those two called out, so it's not. It specifically states the Board of Trustees is making determination, not the Public Safety Board, because it just says the word board after. Just refers to all of the bodies as board. And then the stipend amount is not called out. Is that in a separate document or that's somewhere else? I thought that was decided upon earlier, but
So it is, I didn't put it in this document because then it needs to be changed every time the stipend amount is changed. I just had put in here that it would be approved annually and it'd be approved through our budget process. So we would note it as part of budget process what it was annually. And if it would be unchanged, there would be a determination through budget process not to change it for that year.
thank you.
All
So
good?
if approved tonight, then I would update this to the handbook. I will put in Board of Trustees and then I'll resend the new handbook, the updated handbook to all of the trustees, so you have a copy.
Thank you.
Do we want to get a hard copy with the changes on it before we approve it, or are we comfortable moving forward with approving this tonight?
I think we can approve it.
Okay,
It's just it says a simple majority of the trustees at a board meeting with a quorum.
I think she said she was gonna change that.
Yeah. Right. So it's just, nothing is changing. The mechanics aren't changing. It's just to clarify any ambiguous interpretations of the word board.
okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. New business 39, discussion and or action on president's appointments to committees and or commissions. I did speak to President Maloney today. I think he kind of alluded to the fact that you would be able to
Yep.
provide some insight on this?
So there are two, the names are included there in the packet and up on the screen, but they would be to Community Life and Public Safety. They would be Katrina Clark and Clerk Kamke. I apologize, Kirk, if I slaughtered that. So they would be added to the Community Life and Public Safety, and that committee would be back to 7 members.
Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Zagami. Second by Wyland. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. So 4-0 with Jordan abstaining, please. Item number 40, discussion interaction on beverage service agreement. I will call a vote on this, but I am going to recuse myself, so I'll let you guys have at it.
I'll just make a motion to bring it on for discussion. I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Zagami. Second by Pincinot. On the question,
I think they should have insurance, provide insurance to the village, because I didn't see it anyplace. I'm sure they do have insurance. Because they do delivery. They park the truck in the parking and they deliver that stuff. So it's good to have insurance.
I believe that we asked that for them as part of the package, but I thought there was also listed in here.
I didn't see it. I'll look for it and maybe I missed it.
But we can ask them for a certificate of.
I'm sure they have it. They provide it. That's all I have.
any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried 4-0 with Cronin abstaining. Item number 41, discussion and or action on subrogation claim of alternative claims management on behalf of GFL Environmental, date of loss 2/27/23. Claim number WM 0003719200081.
Again, insurance is recommending a disallowance of this claim.
Okay, I move to disallow the claim of alternative claims management on behalf of GFL Environmental for a date of loss 2/27/23. Claim WM 0003719200081.
We have a motion by Jordan. Second by Pincinot. On the question. Jim?
This came through the board to forward this to insurance, correct? Or this went to insurance by itself?
No, I think this went to insurance by itself because it was an accident, so it was filed.
Yeah, the first we heard about it was when our insurance company had it, to my knowledge. This was the first, I received information from the insurance company that the claim was filed and they had it in their hands already.
And there was only property damage, no personal injury, correct?
There was no injury.
And is this a standard procedure? Did we do anything weird here, or is this a normal thing? I mean, obviously required flashing strobe lights, right? We had that stuff, but scraping ice out of the gutter, do we do that, right? Like, we weren't doing anything that we don't normally do in a spring to.
It kind of sounded to me like it was I mean, it would have been no different if the highway crew was operating on the highway and somebody wasn't paying attention and slid into the back of them. That's kind of the way I read it, so.
Yeah, the police report kind of indicated that garbage truck was trying to turn into one of the businesses, and as he was turning into the driveway, ended up sliding into the end loader.
Did he slide on the road? Because that's what it's for. He slide to the vehicle.
Yeah, I don't know if the accident report's in here. I know it showed that as the truck was turning in, that's where they hit the loader, was as they're turning into the driveway. So, I mean, sometimes we back up slightly. That's a common one where people follow too close and then the operator backs up to, we don't back up hundreds of feet on Schofield Ave, but sometimes you do stop and back up. at intersections and so.
Does he have a sign in there, stay behind?
Yeah, I think it-
400 feet, 500 feet?
Yeah, I don't know what the actual statute is, but there is a certain distance you're supposed to stay behind.
Mhm. All right, any more on the discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Item number 44, discussion on update regarding backyard chickens on residential lots, license created via ordinance number 23-021. You have this?
Yeah, only 11 of them so far?
That's all we do.
I thought with price of eggs, you're gonna be more than.
Yeah, right.
Takes them a while to actually get egg layers, but.
I don't know, I went to Sam's Club, get eggs, it was all empty, there was nothing in there.
Anybody have any comments, questions, concerns on the report?
Just to clarify, the humane officer from the city of Weston wasn't lost as stated in the report. I didn't see an obituary or missing persons thing filed on her. But our police department did an outstanding job with being proactive and getting officers specifically trained in the areas of animal welfare, so thank you for that.
Okay. This doesn't require any action, correct?
So to acknowledge the report as presented.
Motion by Pincinel,
Second.
second by Jordan on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Item number 46, discussion and or action on Safer Board of Directors discussion regarding potential fire fee. Oh geez, I'm sorry. My apologies. Item number 45, discussion or action on Class B fermented malt beverage and Class B intoxicating liquor license for SBG to Taco Western LLC DBA Fuzzy's Taco Shop. I'm only used to having like 14 agenda items on my agenda, so bear with me here. What's your pleasure?
Revoke the Class B fermented malt beverage in Class of Bravo intoxicating liquor license of Sierra Gulf Bravo Taco Weston LLC doing business as Fuzzy's Taco Shop and direct staff to move forward with the procedure when Class Bravo intoxicating liquor license becomes available.
Motion by Pincinel,
I'll second.
second by Jordan on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Now, item number 46, discussion and or action on Safer Board of Directors, discussion regarding potential fire fee. Who would like to take this one first?
I'll move to have a staff along with the safer further explore the possible option and implementation of the fire fee.
So we have a motion by Zagami. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Wyland. Before we jump into questions, does anybody want to elaborate on this a little bit or?
I can. So basically what this is this is something that's used in some other parts of the state, although it's fairly rare at this point. So fire fees can be used for fire protection services only. This cannot be used for EMS. Our budget needs to be split up between fire and EMS, how much we spend on each part of that, of our business, basically. And then fire fees can be assessed against properties, and this can also include nonprofits, so schools, churches, some of those types of buildings. There are several different ways those fees can be assessed. The most common one is square footage. You can do assessed value. There is no real limit to how you choose to assess those fees if that is approved. We did talk about some other things, like if they have a sprinkler system, do we give them a credit and potentially lower the fee? So there's a lot of, I guess I would say, unknowns or questions about this yet, but it's something the Safer Board has discussed.
But that, correct me if I'm wrong, that, and Jessica, you can chime in here, that money comes off the levy. Correct.
It's a one-time adjustment. The year that it's put into place, we have to adjust the
Is
levy.
it dollar for dollar? Cause I thought it was the amount of the funds supporting fire in 2012.
So I don't know that it's
So-
dollar for what the fee is.
So we have to look back to 2012 to see how much was on fire, which will be pretty easy, cause at the time it was the village, we had it split between fire and EMS.
Jim, you have something you'd like to add?
Do, So this obviously is gonna come back to us, right? When it comes back, can we see some real life examples of how this would play out, right? So for example, show a 2024 tax bill of an average standard issue, most commonly sized and valued home. Your whatever, $225,000 home or whatever the normal number is there. And show, hey, my tax bill was this, now it will be this. Plus X amount fire fee per residence. All right, and then show that same example for a standard issue, most common size commercial business or retail property. And then I don't know who has the most commercial square footage under one roof. Is that Weston Supply?
It's gotta be. It's either Wassas, the biggest one would probably actually be DC Everest. I spoke with them because I knew they'd be impacted and they're close to 1 million square feet.
So if you look at that, like, what does their number look like? Right, so just before we say, yes, let's do this, what does this impact actually look like? To all of those. So get an example of that.
I think that's what the motion was, to work it out and come back to us. Right?
Correct, I'm just asking for some details, specific details to be in there when it comes back, Shane, but thank you.
Well, I need some example of the square footage cost.
That's literally what I just said.
Okay.
Thank you. Will the village of Rib Mountain also be required to utilize a fire fee if the village of Weston does?
No.
But even though it's the same
That's.
fire entity, okay.
So the reason there is because we're up against our levy and they are not, correct?
Yes, they are in a different financial position. They still could choose to take this route, but they don't, we can do it independently of each other.
I will tell you,
In the same department, that was my
yeah,
question.
I will tell you at the board, or at our safer board meeting the other night, though, there was some indication that they were considering, correct,
I would
doing
agree.
it at the same time, so.
Will that fire fee impact the funding formula currently set up with Safer? Why or why not?
Well, the funding fee is based off of the coverage and we,
Based off the use, right?
no, it's
No.
based
Potential
off the
use?
coverage. We have substantially more population than Rib Mountain has. So,
It works out, the percentage is, am I wrong? The percentage is almost split exactly the right way when it comes to use too.
It is, it's very close.
It's very close.
I'm
but-
sorry, my question
Yeah.
is maybe, will the fire fee impact that because of how it's laid out, right? So if, however that comes out, the commercial buildings are now, whatever, 80% and residential is 20%, but there's more, or that's already figured into the formula, the funding formula for Safer, so it doesn't matter. Is that correct?
we would still, I think we're 66% of the funding formula. We would still, our fire fee would still cover 66%. But when you think about the fee, we're gonna do the math backwards. So we're gonna get the number of what it takes for the fire piece of Safer and then work that math backwards to what that fee is. So we don't do all of the square footage and say, here's the fee. We say, this is how much money we need. This is how much it will be charged per your square footage or per structure.
Yep.
The math will be done backwards.
But the formula will be unchanged, Jim.
Yeah, it'll still be, I think we're 66%, is that right?
It ranges between, I think you're at 68 right now, actually, and it varies back and forth about 2%.
Okay.
One way or the other.
And then the proposed total rate will be based on 26 future budget? Or you're just gonna base the fire fee, because it's gonna change every year, right? Because the Safer budget changes annually. So whatever fire fee you propose, say you had all these numbers today, I mean, is that based on today's budget and then obviously it scales?
Correct me if I'm wrong, would we not want to base this off of would it be the 28 budget when the,
They're looking at implementing earlier, I don't, if you remember, we applied $105,000 from our fund balance to pay for this year's budget for Safer.
correct?
With the expectation of going to referendum, or we have that one more ability to shift some more street and then borrow for more street to be able to fund Safer. But I mean, the hope would be to implement this fire fee, see how it's working, and maybe not just hit them with our huge ask. As you remember, one of the reasons why we're looking at this is because Safer is looking at hiring nine more employees. They're looking at getting a Safer grant, but after that grant is done, we need to fund those 9 employees. So that is one of the reasons why we're doing this, and we were picking between referendum and fire fee. Originally, I think it was even a year ago, the board was leaning more towards referendum. But as the discussions went on, the thought is, okay, what if our referendum fails and we have to fee them anyway because we need to pay for these additional. When you're in a joint agreement with that the village is in, you can't be the party that says, no, we can't do that. When the board agrees to hire 9 people, fund them. But that is one of the reasons why we're talking about this right now.
I think I mean, Chief's got a lot of data to back this up too. I mean, there's been, the amount of times that we've got is it concurrent calls? Where you've got multiple apparatus out the door at one time is becoming increasingly more frequent. It's not gonna go down. There's been a number of significant, fire calls that we unfortunately have not had people on scene in a timely manner. And then is it 10 firefighters for NFPA that they want you to have on scene in so many minutes?
17, actually.
17, and what are we at right now?
5.
So NFPA wants you to have 17 people on scene in 10 minutes, and right now our average is 5. So there's a big disconnect there.
So just have 3 more. So then annually, will that fire fee be adjusted to offset? So that'll just be part of the budget, or that will be part of?
It'll be part of the budget process. The fire budget will go up, and I mean, if there's additional levy, or, I mean, the board ultimately has the decision of how to pay for safer, right? You guys can decide, we want to use levy, we're gonna cut other services, whatever we have to do, you're gonna fund safer. But this just allows us to make the decisions easier and be able to fund safer without a dramatic cut.
Perfect. How will the funds be specifically earmarked for fire protection and not utilized for EMS?
We'll have it in our budget. I already made a mock budget if we were using this for 2025. And I split out, the hardest part is the wages because all of our people do both. So basically what I'm doing is how many ambulances we have staffed per day. I took those people out and I charged them against the EMS part of the district. And then the other things are charged against fire. And then other things like, repairs and fuel and those things are very easy for me to split out.
Perfect. Okay, and then the last one is, we talked about this in finance, the expenditure restraint program, what impacts or potential impacts would this have on that? And just talk about.
A loss of $115,000 for the first year.
So know that that's inbound, a loss of $150,000. When it's on day one, right?
Any way that if safer goes up that amount, there's a few ways around it. I'll have to see the timing of everything. The gradual would be better for us. So it's just a wait and see right now. With the TIF closing, see when we can get that closed. Because when the TIF closes, we're not gonna get it either, because there's no exception for TIF closure in your expenditure restraint. It's solely the budget of the general fund.
So could this be phased in? Could this be a 50% or 30% fire fee this year, and then you would
We
make it a
could,
60%?
because if they get the safer grant, when they hire these 9 people, that means that the funds aren't needed right away. So it could be something very strategic that the village could work on to have the least impact on the overall village position.
And another neat thing about this too is originally when we talked, we thought that the safer grant was gonna be 100% year 1, 66% year 2, 33% year 3, and then by year 4 you had to pay for it. Well, the new grant is fully 100% funded for the first 3 years. Correct. Which is mathematically actually works out better for us. So it would be prudent to phase it in and then have everything in place by year 3 or year 4. Anybody else have any further comments, discussion, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I started the process. I reached out to Cassell. Jamie and I talked about it Thursday. And how are we gonna do this? We threw out the idea of Excel. That'd be pretty cumbersome, a very large database. a lot of the communities that we were talking about that did the fire fee are a lot smaller than us. So imagine a line in Excel for every parcel in the village and then trying to separate them between, because what we're anticipating is different rates for residential, commercial, not-for-profits and stuff. We want to be able to bring that information to you, show you what an example fee would look like to these people, and then being able to manipulate it. So I called our current financial software Excel, and they kind of have something, they think it could work for us. So we're gonna get a price. Hopefully it's not too out of this world. It's just adding another module to our current system. So I'll be bringing that back. This process will take a long time. We're gonna somehow have to get all this data. I think that's gonna be the hardest part. Like, you have to remember, not-for-profits, Greg doesn't have that information. So that's how we're gonna have to determine how to get the square footage of the churches and all these other entities that we're looking at sending this fee to, but we don't have the information for them right now.
Would hospitals have to pay this as well? Okay. I had another thought, but I just lost it. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 47, discussion and or action on possible attorney referral regarding safer charter questions. Who wants to take this one?
It's just a memo in the packet that there was a request from trustee Pincinel for some additional attorney response for some safer questions. It's quite a few questions, so I thought best to put onto the agenda because of the cost that there would be associated with the attorney referral.
Jim, you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I see that no one has looked at the safer charter or it hasn't been revisited. Like it's with the town of Red Mountain versus the village of Red Mountain. And there's just some other abnormalities in there that are maybe are an issue, maybe are not. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not looking to get out of safer. I think they do a really good job, but at the same time, I still think I know that my duty as an elected official in the village of Weston is to look out for 16,000 other people. So if not asking the question, like the town of Weston lease, same thing, right? Nobody looked at that or revisited it in a long time. So we're finally looking at that just to clean some of these things up. And like I actually have additional questions on this, which aren't even in here. What is the current fee from the village of Weston to Safer to act as the financial fiscal agent?
That was in a separate agreement when we did an RFC for that.
So
We did an RFP to the town of Red Mountain at the time, and the village of Weston did an RFP. They did an RFP, right? Yeah, we submitted, so we won the bid. It was free. It was
Okay. Did you by chance did you get an opportunity to sit down with chief and go through some of this and see if?
I
you get a lot of
did,
these
yeah.
questions
I think
answered?
a lot of these are cleared up and maybe just an amendment to the charter could happen to re-sign it with the village of Red Mountain versus the town. I don't know if that's necessary or not. Again, that's an attorney Edie question, not a Jim question. And then was there an expiration term agreed upon for those financial services? Or that's a do it for free forever?
So the reason why the village would want to do it for free is because we charge $50,000. Well, village, right now it's a 50-50 kind of thing where the Red Mountain and the village Weston, we kind of work together. But we have 68% of savers, so we'd end up paying more than what we're receiving.
Yes, we would pay 68% of the bill. No, I understand that. And then in the lease between Safer and the town of Red Mountain, it shows that the town, which is now a village, is responsible for the snow removal and lawn care at Station 1. But Don't they plow their own snow and cut their own grass?
No, we do it.
Right, the fire department does, but the lease states that the village will do that, or that Rib Mountain will plow the snow and cut the grass. Is their dollars due back to Safer for the personnel, materials, time, equipment?
I don't think it says that in the new one, does it? I don't have it with me.
Where are you reading it? Can you, is the lease is in here? I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think that's the case, because you guys have plowed and maintained the lawn as long as, that's actually been a sticking point at our meetings a few times. It's come up.
We, in all honesty, do not mow the grass. We have had a local lawn care company that wanted to give back to the community, and they've been mowing it for us for free for 3 years. So we actually don't mow it. But we do plow.
It's in a lease wherever that is. That's station one, right? So station one's lease starts on page 288. And again, there could be a newer
289.
It says the town will be responsible for all plowing, snow removal, snow shoveling as required in the parking lot, driveways, sidewalks, and for lawn care and landscaping of any grassy areas adjacent to the building.
Again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm reading this and I'm saying, gosh, we've been paying the lease for however long and the town hasn't provided that service. We've paid that service, or Safer has paid that service for however long station one has been
So
there.
289, which section?
Exterior maintenance, number 5.
Paragraph 5, exterior maintenance.
Is that the most up-to-date charter?
This is
Yes,
all I
the
was
second
provided, so.
amendment, yeah. This was just 2021.
The charter was addressed not that long ago. It's gone through with a fine-tooth comb at the time.
It does say that. Just as a, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily something that needs to go to our attorney. Could it not go to Safer's? If we wanted to have that looked at?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and really all of these questions maybe should be a Safer attorney referral. I don't know that. Right, but just it's great that it's here and then just go immediately to Edie. But
Well,
some of these questions are.
I understand, I guess. My thought immediately when I saw this and saw these questions was, okay, where are we going with this? I mean, because I understand that there's questions that need to be cleared up, but at the same time, I'm sitting here going, okay, what's the end game here? Why are we gonna refer this to the attorney? Is there a problem that needs to be addressed that we can talk about here and get rectified? Because I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of questions that flew here and I don't know what the end game is, I guess.
My intent is just to ensure that the best value for the Village of Weston taxpayers is being realized right now. And if we are paying 68% of the dollars to Safer, and Safer bought a snowplow and has a truck and has someone donating lawn care services and we're paying firefighters to plow the snow. That's included in the lease. Safer is due back those dollars, in my opinion, that we're paying for something that should be included in the lease.
I thought it is in the lease.
It is in the lease, but we're doing it, Husheng, that's what I'm saying.
What they should do is a lease, man. I mean, lease is a contract. They should do it. Is nothing to negotiate about it.
No, they're not doing it. The town, in the lease, it reads the town of Rib Mountain will plow the snow. The town of Rib
Correct.
Mountain is not plowing the snow.
They're not.
Well, we should demand that they do it.
Well, they have the bad luck, Husheng, that's exactly what I said.
A lease is a lease, is a
I'm
contract.
glad this is
I
recorded.
mean, there is nothing to talk about it. Why we signed the lease then? If you want to talk about this stuff.
I didn't sign it, Husheng.
I know you didn't sign it, but whoever signed it, it is there. You said you should plow the snow,
Alan Opal, Lynn Colden,
right?
I'm guessing this is Maloney's signature and Char, maybe?
Yes.
Charlotte or Maloney would have been the
Vice
president at
chair.
the time the amendment was done, right?
He was the vice chair of,
Vice.
of Safer then.
I mean, it's almost 4 years after this thing is signed and I'm the first one to raise the question of like, gosh, we've been paying for this for 4 years.
No, that was a very large discussion and very,
Yes.
so there's a reason why it just was never cleared up at that meeting. That was really a point of heat at that discussion.
Then maybe attorney should refer to attorney to write a letter to Red Mountain, Village of Red Mountain, and remind them what they're supposed to do according to this.
I guess my question here is this and maybe you can answer this, is this a place for our attorney or is this something that that Safer's attorney needs to look at?
Safer attorney.
If that's the case,
I
then
would
this
say if-
conversation's at the wrong meeting.
I guess I would, in my opinion, if the Village of Weston wants some kind of dollars back for the snow plowing that Safer has done, that would be a Village of Weston attorney. That's the way I would see it.
Is that what you're looking to get, is dollars back, or are we just looking to clear this up and move forward in a peaceful manner, I guess is my question.
Exactly. So clear it up. If it's not being done that way, then rewrite the contract so that it's being done the way that it should be done, or adjust the lease amount, or do whatever is fair and equitable to our taxpayers. I'm not trying to steal, I mean, it can't cost but $5,000 a year to plow that parking lot. If you hired it out, even if it's $10,000 a year and you go back to 2021, so that's $40,000. And the Village of Weston is responsible for 68% of the $40,000 anyways. So I'm not trying to leverage, I don't know what the math on that is, 18 grand or something out of the Village of Red Mountain. Let's just make it read how it is and make it work.
I would argue it's not costing us that. I mean, that we own the truck regardless because we have to have a brush truck. So yes, you paid for the plow, but the people plowing are on shift anyways, correct? You don't have someone that comes in off shift and does it, right?
If I'm there, I do it.
So I
usually,
mean,
actually.
the only real cost to us, truthfully, because you already have to have people there, is whatever the plow was and whatever you're spending in fuel to plow the lot. I mean, really, that's the only thing it's costing. Just kind of playing devil's advocate here. I'm just speaking my mind, but I don't know. What's the rest of the board want to do? I don't, there's a motion on the floor, so.
If I could jump back to just one thing, I know a sticking point on this is the town versus village thing, so I did talk to our attorney about that. And he referred me to state statute 660213, paragraph 2. It specifically talks about if there is a town that becomes a village or a city, that any ordinance remains in force until it is acted upon. And ordinance 5.01 in Red Mountain's ordinances said that Safer is their fire department, so in his opinion, there is nothing that needs to be done with the village versus town thing. Obviously, if the village's attorney wants to have a second opinion on that, that's fine, but that's what he told me.
You had a question on the lease too. Did you get that cleared up? For the buildings?
That's what we're talking about, snow plowing.
Well,
That
the
was the lease.
snow plowing is, I think, is a separate, all right, but you had asked specifically about the square foot per building that Safer is paying each municipality. That was your first question. Have the municipalities been paid rent for the utilization of the respective buildings at $6 per square foot with an annual increase to match CPI?
At least said $1.
That's $1 for each municipality.
That was in the original charter that I was not there at that time, so I honestly don't know if that charter was ever put in, but I did find a charter that was drafted, a draft version of one from 2013, which would have obviously been before the district was actually started, that did say $6 per square
But
foot.
that one was never signed.
I did
correct?
not, could not find a signed version of that. I'm not sure if it was ever or not. I was not around.
What does the signed version that we have now say?
$1.
Right, but that document wasn't presented to me. When I asked for a copy of the Safer Charter, I got a 2013 version. You can look in the email whether it's signed or not.
I'm just trying to clear it up. That's all
So that's my question.
I'm
If
just
it
making
says
sure.
it's $1, I don't care about the $1 total and you're basing it off the dollars per square foot, it's a freaking dollar. Right?
I guess what I'm getting at is if we can clear a lot of this up here without having to send it to the attorney and spend $2,000 or $3,000, that would be preferred. That's why I'm asking. So
Agreed.
Is there anything else specifically besides the plowing, I guess, that you didn't get cleared up in your conversations with chief or? I mean, if that's the case, Jim, if it's just, would you be okay with us taking that up at Safer instead of here?
That's fine.
If that's your only concern, we can have that put on our meeting agenda for March.
Perfect.
Instead of, I think that's worth having both municipalities pay a portion of that bill. So we figure it out. So I guess I can make that motion, or if someone else wants to.
I'll make a
Just make a
motion, we
motion.
refer to Safer Board for discussion.
So we have a motion by Zegami,
Second.
second by Pincinot. On the question? Hearing none, oh, sorry.
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to ensure that the snowplow versus the lease stuff is included in your motion there. So we're gonna defer.
I think we
We're
have
going to commit this entire topic to the Safer
You should
board.
just take his letter.
I think we've got a pretty good handle on what we need to.
I think so.
Discuss with them. But if you want to amend it, go ahead. Jeff, okay. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Discussion and or action on incorporating pedestrian accommodations into plans of 2030 County Road X State Highway 29 Bridge Project.
I'll move not to pursue funding option to widen County Trunk dash X / State Trunk Highway 29 Bridge Deck.
So we have a motion by Zegami.
So that's a negative motion. There's no reason to have that motion.
We can discuss that. That's for discussion.
I would disagree with
Made a motion.
So we have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Zegami and a second by Jordan. Just to clarify, your motion is to not pursue this, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
First.
you have the floor.
That bridge was built in there on Birch Street, so people don't cross in there. Because when you wanna cross, you're going south. You're gonna pass, you gotta walk on that turning lane. And then further, you gotta cross the vehicle coming to the intersection and also the vehicle turning to the south. The same thing to the other side of it, opposite direction. And there was a lot of discussion over this issue when we were going to build that bridge. One option was to build the bridge and connect it, attach it to the deck, bridge deck. But the cost was significant. So Birch Street pedestrian bridge was built to eliminate this project. You understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying. I don't
Right.
agree with it. When you say
No.
that the cost was significant, we can look and we can find out, we can fact check how much it actually cost to build that bridge. From thinking $500,000 to $1 million, probably exceeded that amount, didn't it?
That bridge was 2 million.
Okay, and so this proposal is for 500,000 to 1 million, right?
Correct.
And 500,000 to 1 million used to be less than 2 million.
It's still, that project is already done.
Right,
But
so to
it's
build
still-
that today, it'd be 4 million.
But it's still you're spending $1 million, you do not eliminate the hazard in that area. Because it's still, they gotta walk across those exit and entrance of the vehicle to the intersection, to the bridge.
How was the pedestrian bridge funded? However many years ago that was? Did we get a grant or anything for that?
Yes,
We did.
yes, we got money from DOT.
How much of it was funded by DOT?
I think 80%. I could be off.
What year was that?
2010.
I was probably still running around in the woods on my bike.
I'll cross that bicycle. And anytime I cross that, everybody screamed practically, every driver complained.
So Jim, I assume it sounds like this came from Clips, correct?
No, it didn't. Well, it did originally, and it, well, it just, a bunch of pieces all came together. So we talked about this at Clips. There was literally the next agenda item is to do a bicycle and pedestrian master plan, which may or may not identify a need for a crossing there. I don't disagree with your statement, Husheng, that yes, it's a busy intersection, it's hard to get across there. But if you're adding a half a mile to someone's walk, they're not, may or may not be signing up for an extra half a mile under foot traffic, and I get that. I actually was working with a gentleman several weeks ago from the state of Wisconsin that I had another professional engagement with, and he actually asked, he was staying at the Holiday Inn and usually stays at the Fairfield on the other side, Marriott, Fairfield, yeah. Usually stays there, but the government rates changed, so he stayed at the Holiday Inn and had mentioned how it's essentially impossible to walk across there, get to Bruce Brothers, to go to lunch, any of that stuff. Without obviously going on the Birch and back, and how that there were likely state funded dollars to make a project like this come to fruition, that it would not cost the village of Weston this $500,000 to $1 million. So I reached out to Michael and said, hey, I gotta contact this guy here or from this guy here. He said, or because he asked me, so what would it cost to do that bridge? I have no idea. That's a Michael question. So I asked Michael, hey, what would it cost to do the bridge? And so here it is. Here's the $500,000 to $1 million. I'm not in support of putting this to not develop a pickleball court and put this in priority above it. I'm not in favor of that. But if there are other grant funds available, just like there was a grant fund for $2 million to build this other bridge. I think now would be the time to ask that question. I don't know that are we tied to paying for this design, or what does that look like?
We would be required by the DOT to pay for the design to add that. So
Would they actually pay to build it?
that would be the proposal, is we'd be looking for a grant monies to pay for the construction of that. So the DOT has it in their program to redeck in 2030, but they're not doing anything to expand the bridge or really do anything but replace the concrete deck that's on it as it currently is. So if we wanted, they said if we wanted to add something to it, that'd be on us to have it designed and fund for the construction of it, but I guess that's where we'd be looking at the grant funding to construct it.
Are they looking at rebuilding that resurfacing that interchange as it sits, or would they be looking to make other modifications to it?
I think right now they're looking, what do they call it? It's part of their pavement rehabilitation plan, so it's really just same footprint, but new surface.
Husheng?
I have a personal experience with that overpass. I ride on it with the bicycle at least 50, 60 times. It's never been easy to cross that. I got a lot of a complaint from drivers. Get off the road, get off the road, get off the road, and they had all the right. You're going 10, 12 miles an hour, he wants to go 30 miles an hour. It doesn't work. And all this complaint got to that bridge because there was a lot of other people complain about it. So that's what that bridge came to be built, Bridge Street. So if they want to spend money on these things, that doesn't eliminate the hazards. You just put somebody on that sidewalk when you cross the deck. But when he get off the deck, that's where all the hazard is.
I guess my 2 cents on this is I understand what you're asking here. I mean, are we opening a can of worms? Because as it exists, there is no other infrastructure that gets you to the bridge. I mean, you would have to construct a sidewalk from.
There is.
Well, there's the roads, but as far as if you want to add a walkway for pedestrian or biking or what be you, there, you would have to construct a sidewalk or a bike path or something from the other intersections on both ends. That's a cost that is 100% gonna have to be on us. That's not gonna be the DOT. So you might be able to get them to fund building the extra space on the bridge. But we're gonna have to build the paths to get there as in addition to the design.
Yep, I understand that.
So.
Yep.
Do we maybe want to table this for the time being? I mean,
No,
let.
I have a motion.
Well, I know you do, but what I'm saying is, do we maybe want to forego this for a while, see how that study comes back? And then revisit this conversation? Maybe we're putting the cart before the horse here.
Well, if I say just kill it for now and be done.
Yeah, I agree.
Vote.
Okay, let's vote. Any further on the discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Jamie, I didn't hear.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so, motion passes 4-1. Forty-nine, discussion interaction on consultant selection for pedestrian and bicycle master plan.
Move to
Move
authorize.
to approve. If somebody made a motion.
Motion by Zagami. There a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jordan on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Item 50, discussion or action on Schofield Avenue, Normandy Street to Birch Street traffic control equipment procurement.
Move to authorize staff to procure the traffic control equipment from TAPCO for a not to exceed price of $411,317.80.
Motion by Pincinot,
Second.
second by Zagami on the question. Jim?
Can any of the existing lights be reused? Like I'm thinking we're probably still gonna have red, yellow and green ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, the bulbs probably can, I don't know if the signal lights.
Like the housings, that's all gonna be new and all
Yeah.
LED or something. And then all the old ones get public surplus auctioned, yes?
Yeah, that'd be salvage. I mean, we still have other lights that are probably similar to that I guess if we need something,
We can.
I was just gonna ask
Yeah,
that.
we have an
wouldn't it be
inventory.
prudent to keep parts on hand if we have other?
yeah.
Yeah, we keep an inventory of traffic control signals.
Good, okay.
Is there any projected energy savings on this? I assume the new ones will be LED.
The current ones are LED too.
So that's a net zero. It shows Dan Raskowski and 5500 Schofield Ave.
Yeah, I talked to them about that.
You're not good. And then is it possible to request to them that they ship everything together to save on freight?
Yeah,
Like, we don't need the crosswalk stuff before we get the stoplights or vice versa.
yeah, and they generally do batch ship like the Schofield Ave Mesker stuff. We actually had to specially request that they just ship us what they had because they were holding up everything because of one piece. So. Yeah.
Anything further on the discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 51, discussion interaction on Green Tree Acres Phase 2 construction services contract.
To approve the construction representative contract with Reland Associates for Green Tree Acres second phase for the estimated contract of not to exceed $44,000.
Motion by Pincinot,
Second.
second by Jordan. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 52, discussion and or action on Schofield Ave reconstruction special assessment procedure.
Move to proceed with the special assessments for Schofield Ave, Normandy to Birch project.
So we have a motion by Pincinot. We have a second.
I'll second that. Could you add to it from Normandy to Bridge Street?
If I didn't say that, please.
We have a motion by Pincinot, second by Zagami on the question. So I have one, I just wanna, so your motion, just make sure that we're on the same page, is to assess all the property owners and not use TIF funds, correct?
Correct.
Is that what I'm understanding?
That's the recommendation from Public Work.
Well, their recommendation was looking for direction on how to move forward with special assessments on this project. So if you read, there were two, am I incorrect? There were two
Yeah.
options. We can special assess every property along there for all their driveway approaches. Or have the TIF pay for it. So I just want to make sure that we're voting for what we want to vote for here before we.
Yeah, the only project I can think of when I first started Schofield Ave, Ryan Street to J was redone, and that was not special assessed at that time. It had some grant funding and TIF monies in it, which I guess this project does too, so. I'm fine either way, I just didn't wanna do something and then all of a sudden either get told, why are we doing this to the business owners, or why aren't we doing it? So
Well, let me ask you this, did we special assess all the homes in Crestwood Acres?
yes, we did, yes.
Done. Jim?
How does traffic control factor into the cost for the assessments of the project? So like Target and Ace have stoplights there, but you only need stoplights there because Target and Ace are there.
Yeah, so technically our assessment ordinance doesn't cover traffic signals, so since they're a replacement infrastructure, they wouldn't be factored in.
And again, not asking them to pay for it, like they have to be there. You never get in or out of either of those yards, but the only reason they're there though is because of those businesses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and the way our assessment ordinance it reads though is if it's replacement infrastructure, it's not assessed except for the driveway approach.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Before we move into closed session, I'm gonna get rid of everything else that's on here real quick. Attorney referrals. Do we have any?
I believe so. I think that
No.
went to,
Jamie, none? Joe?
Nope.
Shane?
No.
I've got none. Administrator referrals. Jim, you have anything? Jamie? Joe?
No.
I do have one. I would like to see an agenda item for March to look at, I think Mark talked to you about this. Attorney referrals, that can only be done by the board and the administrator. Not the president. Remarks from trustees. Jim?
just that I'm very pleased with the new e-newsletter. I think that transition went really seamlessly. Good job to Jamie and whoever else did that. And then the incorporation of the agendas on social media. I think that's a great thing. That's learned too, but it'll catch up and it's all good. And I think does very well to promote transparency and encourage folks to sit in the audience here, even if they don't have an agenda item.
Jamie?
Yeah, just a couple things. February 8th, I forwarded an email from Josh Finke to both Sean and Jamie in regards to installing a public access entity. And asked for that to be on the agenda. Will that be an item on the parks agenda then?
I would think it could start at Parks as a referral, but I don't know that what's the cost of those items? It might just be something that we could handle out of the Parks budget.
5,000.
Okay. Yeah, I would think a good place to start would be Parks.
We have that added then to the next parks agenda.
Yes.
Thank you. And then just something simple here. Sean stated in his packet that they're grooming the trails at the dog park. While they're there, could they kindly update the bulletin board? I feel like those puppies are like 2 years old now. And then question, the baseball and softball, that first tournament, it's a joint tournament. Michael, maybe you can answer this. And the discussion is that 100% of the concession proceeds will go to the campaign. And I know it's just discussion, but when is that? My question is, when is that tournament? Sorry, I put you on the spot.
We'll get it in 30 seconds.
Okay, well, while Michael's getting his answer, we'll come to Joe. Anything?
Michael,
All right, hold that thought. Shane?
Sorry.
You're good? Okay. I don't really have anything to add.
Not even for Michael?
That, okay, so the first tournament is the last weekend in June, the 28th through the 30th.
Okay.
Joe. I really appreciate you trying to work with Crane Meadows, and I would only encourage you to reach out to him again, maybe in a day or two. And I mean, if we don't have a weather event, I don't think it's gonna be a big issue. And I guess the only other thing is, if you'd share with me what your plan is, in the event that we have a big rain event, what you think might handle that.
Yeah, I guess the hard part is historically, we didn't have a place for the creek to backflow to, so then it just meant the water spilled out all over the course in even more spots, so. I guess it has to go somewhere eventually, so. At one point it spilled across Progress Way, like I said, we stopped that, then it, the ditches and I think, we used to overtop Shorey and other roads downstream, so it.
It was great for me last year.
Yeah.
I didn't flood.
I second that. I don't know, I felt like there was no good answer. Somebody was gonna be unhappy regardless of what happened tonight, so.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I appreciate you guys all taking the time with me. I'm sorry this went a little long. It's the first time I've had to run one of these, at least a full one, so I apologize. Future items, next meeting date, Monday, March 17th, 2025 at 6 p.m. That's all I have. Let's move into closed session. Thank you, everybody. So a motion to move into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, to wit, Marathon County case number 2024 CF 544. Continue in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, to wit, right-of-way negotiations for Weston Avenue, Von Cannell Street to Ryan Street, and real property option agreement in Weston Business and Technology Park South. I'll entertain a motion.
Going to go closed session.
Motion by Zagami,
Second?
second by Jordan. Roll call, please.
Cronin,
Here.
Jordan,
Here.
Pincinel,
Yes.
Wyland,
Yes.
Zagami.
Yes.
All right.
Second, I need to move. Okay. And
So we are back in open session. Possible action on closed session items. Marathon County case number 2024 CF 544. We have no action. Right-of-way negotiations for Weston Avenue, Von Cannell Street to Ryan Street, no action. And real property option agreement in Weston Business and Technology Park South, no action. We've already taken care of everything else on the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Actually, can I
Oh.
kindly make one more remark?
That's not allowed. I'm just kidding. Go for it.
I forgot, because I wasn't at the tourism meeting, and looking here, Jessica explained that after receiving, quarter room tax, that there's a $3,000 in the fund balance. And then Gabriel questioned if the amount can be committed to Kennedy, and Jessica said yes, as long as it gets permission and approval to move the funds. Has that been done, or how do we go about doing that?
Put on the tourism commission.
so we could put that on for April. Yep.
All right, motion to adjourn. Motion by Zagami. Oh,
Did you already have one?
I don't think I did, because Jamie said she had one more item to add, so I apologize.
I will second that motion.
All right, Zagami, Pincinel, on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Thanks, guys. Sorry that got a little long.